Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you could please take your seats. All right, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Marks. If you'd please stand.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you'd please remain standing, we have an invocation by Pastor Malcolm McPhail of New Hope Community Church.
Good evening, Council and members of the audience. I just want to say thank you. We, as clergy in this town, deeply appreciate the privilege to be able to pray for you. And we don't just pray for you on the Monday night we're here. We make it a point to pray for you often as the leaders of our community, which reminds me of a quote. A leader defines reality and makes the decisions that are needed. Many decisions come before you on a regular basis, and many of them have a very real reality base today, need to do something about it, opportunity. And that's what it is. It's an opportunity to make a decision to better our community, to better the people of our community, and to watch over our community. So thank you for the decisions that you are making and have made and are making as you look forward into the future. And let me pray for you and the decisions you have to make for the future. Lord, thank you. We bow our heads for just a moment to say thank you for, to call upon a higher power, to call upon something greater, someone greater than ourselves, that we might seek wisdom, that we might seek guidance, that we might be able to have the wisdom to make the decisions to lift up our community, to strengthen our community, to encourage our community, and to build a community that is safe and protected. I always remember our first responders when praying for our community. Lord, you would keep them safe, bring them home at the end of each watch, and that our community would be the better for it. We thank you for those that are serving tonight in the City Council, our mayor, and all those in our city community. We pray that you'll continue to watch over them and give them decision-making ability as well. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before I continue on with the city clerk's report, I'd like to announce that our city clerk, Ty, had a birthday May 14th, and council member Tom Klein has a birthday coming up on June 10th. So happy birthday, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, city clerk's report on posting the agenda and roll call.
Yes, Madam Mayor, after making me embarrassed. Agenda was posted on Thursday, June 1st at 4:45 p.m. Councilmember Almaderas?
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Bracco?
Here.
Councilmember Klein?
Here.
Councilmember Hilton?
Here.
Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Tovar? Here. And Mayor Blinkley?
Here. Thank you. Okay, 1.6 is orders of the day. We have none. And next we have employee introductions, and they are all, four of them, promotions really, by our police department, right? Chief Espinoza is going to...
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and members of the community. I'm happy to share with you and celebrate the promotion of four of our team members. We'll start with Amanda Marcial, who was promoted to Public Safety Communicator from the rank of Public Safety Communications Supervisor from the rank of Public Safety Communicator. Amanda has worked for the city for the last 7 years as a Public Safety Communicator, and she's had the pleasure of training our last 6 dispatchers and thoroughly enjoys working as a dispatcher as well. She's excited to start a new chapter as a supervisor. Amanda is a mom to 2 boys, ages 5 and 3. They enjoy spending time outside, walking the levee, and spending some time with their extended family in Salinas. In her free time, she's an avid reader and enjoys the beach and the lake. Please help me congratulate Amanda Marcial.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I am incredibly excited for this next chapter in my career. And as for the last 7 years, I'm just extremely grateful to work for the city that I live in. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Sounds better.
Okay, now we have Vienne Miles, who was promoted to police record supervisor. Vienne, why don't you come up here, Vienne? Vienne's promotion is effective April 1st, 2023. She started with the Gilroy Police Department in February of 2017 as a police record tech 1 and quickly learned the role. She grew up to love every day and enjoy the challenges of the job. In 2020, she became a PR2, took on the role of an acting supervisor when the need was there, and while still performing the duties of a PR2. On April 1st of this year, she officially was promoted to the rank of supervisor. The NC's great value in her role and looks forward to serving the community and strives to build a professional, knowledgeable, and cohesive records and property and evidence team. Although currently she doesn't have much spare time with the scheduled demands of her new position, she enjoys spending time with her loved ones, hiking and going to the beach to relax when she can. Please help me congratulate Vienne Miles, Police Record Supervisor.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to take on this new role, and I look forward to serving the community and learning every day and sharing my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Robert Basuino, who was promoted to the rank of sergeant from the rank of corporal. Sergeant Basuino was hired as a community service officer in 2004 and as a sworn police officer in May of 2006. In August of 2021, Sergeant Basuino was promoted to the rank of corporal until last month when he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. With over 17 years, he has held positions as sexual assault, child abuse detective, regional enforcement allied computer team task force agent, lead driving instructor, defensive tactics instructor, and crime scene investigator. Sergeant Basuino also has held several positions of the Police Officer Association Board during his career. Please help me congratulate Sergeant Basuino.
Thank you, Chief, Madam Mayor, Council, the community. I look forward to this new position and continue to serve our community. Thank you very much.
Last we have Darren Cooner, who was promoted to the rank of corporal from the rank of police officer. Corporal Cooner was raised here in Gilroy.
We're back to that one.
Is that better? Okay. He was raised here in Gilroy. His family instilled in him the importance of faith and family and the act of serving others. At the age of 14, he joined the Explorer program at the police department, discovering his passion for law enforcement. He is a graduate of Gilroy High School and attended Gavilan College, where he earned an AA degree in Administration of Justice. After that, he earned his BS degree in Criminal Justice from Columbia Southern University. In 2006, Corporal Cooner was hired with the police department as a community service officer, furthering his career, and he became a police officer in 2009 and eventually joined the police department here after a short stint with the San Jose Police Department. Corporal Cooner's special assignments include being a field training officer, a hostage negotiator, member of the major accident investigation team, drone operator, and dual sport and bike patrol. Throughout his career, he's received 8 stolen vehicle awards for auto theft recovery, a life-saving award, and the Blue and Gold Award from the Gilroy Exchange Club. When Corporal Cooner is not on duty, he cherishes spending quality time with his beloved wife and family. During his leisure time, Corporal Cooner finds enjoyment in activities such as fishing, boating, hiking, and immersing himself in the great outdoors. Please help me congratulate Corporal Darren Cooner.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor Blankley and council members. Truly am thankful for the opportunity to take on this new role as corporal here in the city of Gilroy. Blessed to work for such a supportive community, beautiful city that we have here, and looking forward to taking on this new role as corporal. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to all. Okay, under 2.1, we have ceremonial items. Gives me great pleasure to do this one. So this is a proclamation for retiring Gilroy Unified School District Superintendent, Dr. Deborah Flores. I'm going to read it from here, and then I'm going to meet her at the podium and present the actual proclamation. Whereas Dr. Deborah Flores has been the superintendent of the Gilroy Unified School District since July 2007 and is the longest-serving superintendent in Santa Clara County. And whereas prior to coming to GUSD, Dr. Flores was superintendent in the Lucia Mar Unified School District in San Luis Obispo County for 3 years and worked in the Santa Barbara School District for 15 years, where she was superintendent, deputy superintendent, and assistant superintendent. And whereas Dr. Flores began her career in 1975 as a special education teacher and middle school summer migrant education teacher. And whereas Dr. Flores earned her PhD in educational administration from the University of California, Santa Barbara in 1996, and her master's in education in 1978 and bachelor's in education 1975 from the University of Massachusetts. And whereas Dr. Flores has served on numerous committees, including the South County CalSOAP Board of Directors, past president and vice president, the SELPA Executive Council, past president and vice president, Gilroy Chamber Business Education Committee, past chair, and has been a member of Gilroy Rotary since 2008. So we got you 1 year after you came in as GUSD superintendent. Whereas Dr. Flores is an avid runner and has run many races during 40-plus years of running from the mile to the marathon. She also enjoys cycling, backpacking, and skiing with her son Julian, who is a student at UC Santa Barbara. And whereas Dr. Flores has been a proud resident of the city of Gilroy since 2007, now, therefore, I, Marie Blankley, Mayor of the City of Gilroy, together with my colleagues on the City Council, do hereby thank Dr. Deborah Flores for her years of service to our local community and to the Gilroy Unified School District and congratulate her on her retirement.
Well, I promised not to cry, so I got to keep it short. It's real with great mixture of feelings tonight to be honored by you, the City Council, and the Mayor, who we have an incredible partnership with, and I valued that my entire time as superintendent in the district. It's also really hard to think about leaving my position as superintendent, but it's time. I've been working, as you just heard, I didn't realize 1975 would be announced to the world, that I've been working almost 50 years in public ed, but it's been more than a job, it's been a mission for me, and I loved every minute of, well, almost every minute of it. So anyway, thank you so much for this recognition. It's very special.
Well, I'll get there someday. Okay, item 3. This is for members, anybody from the public who would like to speak. I'm sorry, I didn't announce filling out a speaker card, but this is for anyone who wants to speak on something not on tonight's agenda. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Madam Mayor,
Okay.
we have 2 speaker cards.
Okay.
The first speaker is Albert Lustre, followed by Robert Cepeda.
Okay, when your name is called, if you could please come sit in the front row. That way we don't lose time from people trying to get up here. We have seats reserved for those who are planning to speak. So when the agenda item is called that you know you're going to speak on, if you could start sitting up here. Thank you. Well, okay, so somebody should be at the podium now. Okay.
I hear my name.
Sorry. Okay.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Albert Lucia with local Carpenters Local 405. I've been a resident of Gilroy for the last 35 years. And I've seen Gilroy grow from being a little town to a bigger town. I remember my parents and my family were field workers back in the days. I was a field worker myself. But I'm here to talk about the need of area standards on all the projects that get built in the city of Gilroy, which include a livable wage, apprenticeship, local hire, and healthcare. and that is brought by a responsible general contractor. Earning a livable wage ensures that construction workers like myself can afford rent in our city and be able to support our family and provide all the basic needs, not living check by check. It gives the construction workers the opportunity to provide a higher education for their children to promote a better future, and not just a dream. It also gives the general contractor, also having a general contractor that pays a livable wage, it prevents wage theft and tax fraud, which happens more than often. Having a responsible contractor ensures that construction workers have health care provided by the worker, his family, and they don't become a burden to the system. Since 80% of the construction workers depend on some kind of government aid. Apprenticeship programs promotes training, education for at-risk youth, minorities, women, into a 4-year apprenticeship program. For us, is the only opportunity to be successful. Apprenticeship program gives a construction worker a shot to the American dream. This program also provides college credits to apprentices that can continue to higher education and be able to obtain a college degree. Local hire promotes quality of life for the construction workers by able to spend more time with their loved ones and be part of their community. It also benefits our environment by reducing pollution and by not pushing our local workforce away. It also prevents homelessness. With the training that we do, it prevents people from living on the creek or doing this and that. We make a livable wage to be able to promote and take care of our family. I would like to ask our elected officials, please promote a responsible general contractor whenever we have projects coming into our city. It's been about maybe, 15 years? I remember going to the stores and see all my friends. I still see people, local people in Gilroy. I come here, and I'll be honest with you guys.
Sir, I'm sorry, your time,
Okay,
it's been
I'll be
3
honest,
minutes.
I don't
Everyone gets
recognize
3
anybody.
minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
Robert Cepeda.
Good evening. My name is Robert Cepeda. In the last City Council meeting, I spoke about how this council decided to raise the pride flag for the month of June. Here we are in June 2023, and those who may not be aware, I disagree with the decision. We now live in a country where there are two Americas. You see this clearly between different states, such as Florida and here in California. If I may address the First Amendment to the Constitution that states, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, unquote. To my knowledge, Congress hasn't passed a law saying the pride flag is the nation's symbol. However, they don't need to. Our government buildings, public schools, and businesses do it voluntarily. There are teachers in K through 12th grade that refuse to have the American flag, but instead decorate their classrooms with the pride flag. Let's not forget that the rainbow is the symbol of God's promise that he would never flood the earth again. You can find that in the book of Genesis, chapter 9, within the Holy Bible. The rainbow is a part of the Judeo-Christian religion, yet is that what is celebrated every June? No, it is not. I will emphasize, what I am saying is not about bigotry, intolerance, homophobia, or transphobia. I have no problem towards someone that is different. I do, in fact, find it very troubling when that is being forced upon children and vulnerable adults. When did it become hurtful to say, men are not women? There are only two genders, or marriages between a man and a woman. The entire agenda to sexualize life itself is inhumane and evil. Gender-affirming care is not life-saving. It is life-degrading. If you look up the drugs and surgeries that are used, and it will be something out of a horror film. Take some time to read through the LGBTQ plus books at the local library 5 minutes away and really consider if it is appropriate. Before you consider yourself to these liberal values and beliefs, reconsider that society around you and truly ask yourself, are things getting better? We will either live in a country like George Orwell's 1984 or in the America that was established in 1776. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker. We have one more, is that right?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's Jan Bernstein Chargan.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. A couple of years ago, this council had made a recommendation and put out an RFP for a safe parking program for unhoused people in Gilroy. And at that time, the RFP was such that none of the nonprofits could respond with a bid that would fit with the scope of work. And we suggested that maybe we should get a group together, created of service providers and some members of the council and city staff and county together to talk about how we can put together what's needed to do it here in Gilroy. And perhaps there's even a surplus parking lot that the city may have someplace. So, if we all come together, we can get it done. And I'd like to encourage us to start thinking about how to solve problems together, right? Because we can do it if we're all pulling in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports of council members. Are there other speakers?
I'm just confirming. Is this for 3.1?
This is items not on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, if you could please turn in your cards so that we can progress efficiently.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just had to say something. I got a lot of friends. My name is Wes Watt. I'm from Salinas. And I got a lot of friends who are LGBT, and this is actually the only time of year where they get a little more uplifted and included. There's every type of everything. And, I'll say like getting thwarted or thrust all kinds of sexuality onto people from birth. It's already there. I mean, you watch TV, the way Donna Reed went, the way Leave It to Beaver went. That's all TV. That's like an ideal, but it's not reality. There's so many people that have been violated and violently attacked. It's grievous what's happening, and a lot of death because of it. And, there's a lot of history to be learned, and it's just about accepting people for who they are and who they've always been. And, there's plenty of room on this planet for all kinds of different people with different ideas, beliefs, everything. But that's actually where, our laws are supposed to be just and because you're talking violence. I don't care how you want to wrap it, dude. It's violent. It's dangerous what you're saying. And
Sir, can you address the council and not individuals? Okay, you're up here for public. Yeah.
Right. Well, okay. So I do appreciate everything for raising a flag and including people, and I hope that bond and relationship deepens, and you get more inclusive with everyone, man. Because this is about human relationships in the end. If it's public service, and I appreciate the job you're doing toward that.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any? Concluded, or is there more?
Gregory Filios is the next speaker.
Okay, are people continuing to fill out speaker cards for items not on the agenda?
I'm going to be asking, is this for 3.1 or 9.1?
For public comment.
It's for items not on the agenda.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thank you, Council, for allowing us
That's fine. Thank you.
to express our opinions, and we thank you. I thank Robert for having the opportunity to come and speak his opinion, and for the council to listen. I'm proud of Pride Month. I'm proud that the council voted for this. I'm a woke libtard. Robert is a conservative, right-wing.
Okay, but let's not.
We're
not addressing individuals, please.
I'm telling you what we are. And we thank the council for providing both of us the opportunity. That's what I'm saying. The fact that we're different, the fact that you are listening to both of us is very important to me. And I'm glad you guys, I want you to listen to it, and I want you guys to make your decisions. And there's some of us are going to back you, and some of us are not. I'm backing you with this, with the Pride Month. And if anybody wants to talk about it, I'd love to talk to you about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next speaker. All right, so we have one more.
Des Martinez.
Ty, are there suddenly more than 10?
Madam Mayor, this is the sixth speaker, and I believe this is the last speaker from our 3.1.
Great, okay. Go ahead.
Hi, and thank you guys for allowing me to speak here today. I wanted to share a personal story with you guys. It's not on the agenda, and it's public comment. I'm just trying to understand here how this works.
Excuse me, can we start the clock, please? Okay, I'm sorry. You have 3 minutes. It has to be fair for everybody. 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. I just would like to say that I would like to speak on an experience of being in a domestic violence relationship and there being lack of help for individuals like myself. That leads to not having anywhere to go and being on the streets, unfortunately, being unhoused. Being unhoused leads to a lot of criminal activities that could happen to you, being a single woman, being a woman on the streets. So I would like to see our cities in California do more for the unhoused population and also the women and the children that are on the streets, because again, we don't have enough DV. We don't have enough family shelters. We don't have enough. We have nowhere to go, and the only place we have is the streets. So on behalf of the unhoused community, and especially the women and the children that are suffering on the street, I'm asking that you guys provide safe camps, harm reduction camps, stuff like this for individuals to be able to go so they will not be on the streets. That's all.
All right, thank you. Okay. Moving.
My apologies, Madam Mayor. We do have one more speaker card. It's Robert Aguirre.
Good evening. My name is Robert Aguirre, and I'm here to talk about the situation that I see happening all across this, not just the state of California, but all across the country. And that's the problem of people not having sufficient money to be able to have a place to live, people that don't have a safe place to live, people living in their vehicles, people living under bridges, along creeks, rivers, anywhere, places that are not meant for human habitation. And that includes people that are living 3 or 4 families into one garage or one, ADU or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of people that are suffering as a result of no fault of their own, through economic or any other kind of tragedy that could put them in this situation. And they're forced into having to live a certain lifestyle that is not their choice, that they are spiraling lower and lower as a result of many opportunities that don't come past to them. They don't have the same sort of structure that most people have that are able to go out and get a job and do certain things. Some people do work and they're unhoused. But here's the thing. I think that all these people represent the constituents that all of you represent. And they're in every single district of each one of your districts, every area where you live in the city. And therefore, they need to have representation. And from what I've seen, I've been here to Gilroy Council meetings several times, I've not really seen true representation. If you have something that's involving the fairgrounds, or not the fairgrounds, the garlic festival or anything, you have committees, you have people that come together that represent the interest of those people. Where is the association? Where is the council, the group, the whatever you want, a committee that represents the unhoused? And they need to have a voice. They need to be heard. And each one of you know people yourselves that are unhoused. You know people that are living in areas that shouldn't be for human habitation. All of you know somebody. And so therefore, you should reach into your heart and try to figure out what's the best way to represent these folks, what's the best way to give them a voice, why should we be the ones to decide who and what they get, and how much they get, and when they get it. Why can't we allow them to have a voice and have a say for themselves, no different than we would want for ourselves? So thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Okay. Moving on to reports of council members. Councilmember Bracco.
Yes, I just wanted to report that the Santa Clara County Library District will be purchasing the Narcan and all the libraries, bookmobile and everything is going to be equipped with Narcan. And we're also, watch the county library's website, and you'll see they're going to be adding dates for classes on Narcan, and they're going to give out free Narcan.
Thank you. Councilmember Armendariz.
Thank you. Briefly, the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency acquired an additional 22,000 acres along the Pacheco Pass Highway 152 corridor, which will be preserved and some of which will be used for the wildlife undercrossing that is set to be breaking ground by the end of this year, if not sooner. And also an evaluation and salary increase was approved for the executive director. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Marks.
No report.
Councilmember Hilton.
From Silicon Valley Clean Energy, they continue to see impressive results from its efforts to educate community members about its mission to reduce the use of fossil fuels and connect customers to resources and rebates to help them reduce emissions and pollution by going electric. The award-winning eHub resources are being utilized by community members, and there are new features recently implemented or launching later this year that help customers learn more and take action for solar plus battery storage, electric vehicles, and efficient vehicles and electric appliances. With eHub, Silicon Valley Clean Energy aims to support customers' electrification journeys by bringing electrification to customers' minds, providing knowledge to customers about the benefit of electrification, and assisting customers with going electric. With over 3 years of operating eHub and enhancing its digital outreach efforts, staff has seen emails receive a 50% average open rate, far above the industry standards. Customers are increasingly engaging and showing interest in participating in promotions for efficient and electric appliances. The agency has a goal of reaching 250,000 unique users with its eHub and is almost there with more than 218,000 users halfway through the year. You can explore eHub at siliconvalleycleanenergy.org/eHub. Lastly, happy Pride Month, and congrats to Gilroy for winning the Pedal Power Challenge for Bike to Wherever Day month during May's Bike Month. We competed against 35 cities across 2 counties and received the highest number of bike pledges. Gilroy gets the title for the year, and Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition will organize one of their popular social bike rides through Gilroy. The more people who ride, whether child or adult, whether first time, returning, or experienced, the better we can all support the goal of building healthier and more just communities by making bicycling safer and more accessible for everyone. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Klein.
I have no report.
Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I want to thank the IBEW Union 332 for allowing me to join them for their Family Appreciation Night. Made some really good connections and relationships, so I want to thank them for having me at their event. Next, took a drive out to the San Mateo County Fair to support one of our local artists, Nacho Moya, who is showcasing his work. If you aren't doing anything this weekend, you want to go out there and check out his work. In addition to Sunday, Dolores Huerta will be there on Sunday as well, and just to support one of our local artists. And I have to say, when I was there, many, many people were impressed with his work, and invited them all back to Gilroy. So hopefully, we'll get more artists out there. So that's it.
All right, thank you. And I've got a few things. The biggest news for me, I think for all of us, is that we're going to get a 4th train, Caltrain, finally. September of 2023 is when we're promised that 4th train. It'll be a commuter train, weekday train. We don't know yet exactly the time of that train or even all the others. They'll be doing surveys. I'm going to be really pushing, and hopefully we all will, for people to participate in the survey, whether you take the train or not, because that's going to get us the best times of those 4 trains that more people can use to commute. Everyone will have to think about how they get to work, if you need to make transfers and maybe back into the time that the train would need to leave to get you there. But it's the first big change we've had in a long time, so I hope everyone takes that seriously and participates so that we make something of it. The SCRAW expansion, $86 million expansion that we're doing. I just hosted the monthly conversation and coffee with the mayor about that. Went very well. I hope everybody is aware that that is happening, and that is how we are planning for increased population capacity. It's 30% expansion that is shared between Gilroy and Morgan Hill. BTA. The 10125 interchange is moving forward. The funding for that first phase is all set, and so what happened at our last VTA board meeting was actually what's called resolutions of necessity to acquire some property rights that is going to be needed for that whole intersection to happen in the expansion, and some things like the Garlic Shop and Rappazzini Winery will be relocated because of that whole interchange. So it's going to be different. Mesa Road and Castro Valley Road will be closed. There will be an alternate Santa Teresa extension at some point. That hasn't been funded yet. So just letting everybody know that that work there is going to show up within a year. I want to congratulate Los Animas School and Rucker School too. So Los Animas Elementary School and Rucker Elementary School are two schools in Gilroy that participated in the 10th annual Bike Rack Decorating Contest of the Santa Clara County Department of Public Health. And I was asked to be one of the judges, and that was a lot of fun. And Los Animas Elementary School took first place, and they get a golden bike award. It's a perpetual trophy. And the bragging rights, of course, of being the winners. And then Rucker School for participating. That's my alma mater, if you can call an elementary school an alma mater. Anyway, I just want to say congratulations to that for our kids. Okay, that's my report. Item 5.1 is City Council member meeting attendance. This item is on every quarter so that people can see what council member attendance is and don't have to ask. I was asked by a resident for what council member attendance is, and I just want to call out to everybody that that's why we include it now, so it's easy to see. And it's in the packets, and it shows every council member's, all the meetings, every single meeting, and who attended how many, and the same for 2021 and 2022. So you can really see, you can see that information. It's clear. It's nothing to debate. It's in the record. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Oh, sorry, future council initiated items. Apologies. Yes.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to bring up having the council make a decision so we can move forward on naming the downtown park after Gilroy's own Donald Elvis Prieto. I think it'd be a nice gesture for us to do.
You mean, are you talking about the pop-up park? What park? The pop-up park. Are we naming the pop-up park? Yeah, okay. So bring that back. I mean, I guess we see who's interested in discussing that at a future. Yes? Okay, I am. That's a go. All right, thank you. Any others? Okay, now consent calendar. Is there anything that anyone wishes to remove from consent before I go to public comment? Okay, then I'd like to open public comment. Anything on consent?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Move for approval?
Closing public comment, and okay, we have a motion to approve and a second by Councilmember Bracco, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
I think one mic at a time.
Yeah,
Aye.
I think everyone needs to keep their
And I'll
mics
turn
off.
mine off.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, all right, that passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 8.1, bids and proposals. This is the purchase of 3 2023 Chevrolet Colorado work truck crew cab vehicles in a total amount of $103,350 for community development and public works engineering. And Leanne is going to talk to us about these trucks.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the community. Leanne McPhillips, Administrative Services Director. Tonight we are asking to replace 3 vehicles. The City Council approved the replacement of vehicles for both Public Works and Community Development as part of the fiscal year 22-23 budget. After meeting with staff to determine work needs, Fleet has identified the 2023 Chevy Colorado work truck crew cab as the replacement vehicle. This is built to meet the needs of the staff that will use these vehicles each day. These new vehicles will replace some vehicles that are 23 and 24 years old. The vehicles have reached the end of their useful life on mileage, as well as mechanical and physical part failures, and at this time, it's very difficult for us to find replacement parts for these vehicles. We did obtain 3 quotes for these vehicles from our area dealers, and staff is recommending the local purchase from Gilroy Chevrolet, consistent with the City of Gilroy purchasing policy, which permits a 5% local preference. The policy allows 5% local purchasing preference to be applied to the total bid pricing provided by the local business for the purpose of calculating the lowest responsive bidder. As such, the adjusted total bid cost per vehicle with the 5% local preference reduction for Gilroy Chevrolet is $32,727.50 per vehicle, which is lower than the next lowest quote we received. The fiscal year 23 fleet budget, Fund 600, includes funds for these replacement vehicles in a combined total amount of $103,350. With council approval, staff will immediately take the final steps to place the order with Gilroy Chevrolet, and once the vehicles are received and inspected, the city administrator will execute the final sales contracts. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Leanne. May I first go to public comment before? Okay. Open.
No speaker cards, Madam
All right,
Mayor.
closing public comment. Go ahead, Councilmember Tovar. Okay.
It worked out this time.
All right, anyone? All right, seeing nothing. Do you want to make the motion then? Or somebody make? Okay, we have a motion to award the purchase of 3 2023 trucks and to authorize the city administrator to execute purchase documents. Okay, seconded by Councilmember Klein. And this is digital voting allowed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Is it all there?
The motion passed 7-0.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, item 9.1, public hearings. Introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy, adding Chapter 5 to the Gilroy City Code relating to banning the use of certain public right-of-ways as sleeping or living accommodations. Bryce is going to give us this staff report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. A little bit of background. This item has been discussed at multiple meetings, both at the City Council and with the Unhoused Ad Hoc Committee. But 3 of the meetings specifically are about the post-Boise decision. Those are July 5th of 2022, September 12th, 2022, and March 20th, 2023. These topics include authorizing Gilroy PD to enforce no camping under certain conditions, analyzing what other cities have been doing after the Boise decision, and then discussion on a draft policy points for a location-based prohibition to camping areas. On May 15th, the draft orders was presented to the City Council, and discussion on areas of impacts was held. No changes were directed by the City Council as part of that meeting. So the proposed ordinance language applies only to public rights-of-way. So that's a property that's owned, managed, or maintained by the city, or where the city possesses a property interest, allowing public use of such property, such as a right-of-way interest, and shall include but not be limited to any public street, space, ground, building, or structure. So the ordinance carves out parks and playgrounds to allow regular use of the facilities as parks and playgrounds while prohibiting the use of the property as sleeping or living accommodations. The language of the prohibition reads that no person shall obstruct by sitting, lying, or sleeping, or by storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property on a street, sidewalk, or other public right-of-way in the following locations when it reasonably appears, in light of all circumstances, the participants in conducting these activities are in fact using the area as a sleeping or living accommodation, regardless of the intent of the participants or the nature of any other activities in which they also may be engaging. This applies to within 500 feet of any park or playground under this section. This prohibition applies all year, overnight, on any weekends and weekdays, even when such facilities may generally be considered closed. For the other public rights-of-way, the prohibition is that no person shall obstruct by sitting, lying, or sleeping, or by storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property on the street, sidewalk, or other public right-of-way in the following locations. And there's 8 of them. First, in a manner that impedes passage as provided by the Americans with Disabilities Act. 2, within 500 feet of any school or daycare facility. This prohibition likewise applies to all year, overnight, and on any weekends or weekdays, even when such facilities may be generally considered closed. 3, within 100 feet of critical infrastructure, including water wells, storm drain basins, railways, bridges, and under and overpasses. Item 4 is within 10 feet of any operational or utilizable building entrance, exit, driveway, or loading dock, and within 5 feet of any fire hydrant, fire plug, or other fire department connection. 6, in a manner that obstructs or unreasonably interferes with the use of the right-of-way for any activity which the city has issued a permit. 7, in a manner that obstructs any portion of any street or other public right-of-way open to use by motor vehicles, including any portion thereof marked as a bike lane. And last, 8, city creeks and creek embankments within Gilroy city limits. On this map is a depiction and a visualization of the city's prohibited areas under this ordinance. Parks, schools, and daycare centers obviously represent the largest area, but each of these areas indicated in red fall under that prohibition area. Penalties under this ordinance, misdemeanor is a penalty identified if a person willfully resists, delays, or obstructs a city employee from enforcing the section, or willfully refuses to comply after being requested to do so. All other violations of the section, like all others in the city code, are enforceable through infraction or by administrative citation. The overall impact area, the amount of the city that falls within the prohibition area, is 24.4%. Refinements to the map reduce the percentage of area coverage down from the 31.6% previously discussed. That means that 75.6% of the city area, the total city area, does not fall under this ordinance. Or I should say, does not fall under the prohibited area under the ordinance. Enforcement, upon adoption, the quality of life officers and community development will engage our local service providers group and conduct outreach during the 30-day ordinance waiting period to connect those within the prohibited areas to agencies that provide housing services and supplies. The intent is to provide maximum time for accessing services and attempting voluntary compliance. If adopted at the June 19th, 2023 meeting, the ordinance would become effective 3 days later on July 19th. Alternatives, council may choose to reject or modify the ordinance. Should council decide to modify the ordinance, the introduction process would be restarted with a new introduction and first reading. The fiscal impact, there's none to adopt the ordinance, but enforcement would be carried out with existing staffing and fiscal resources. So no budget action is being requested. So the recommendation is for motion to read the ordinance by title only and waive further reading of the ordinance, and to introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy, adding Chapter 5 to the Gilroy City Code relating to banning the use of certain public rights-of-way as sleeping or living accommodations. And that completes the presentation.
Thank you, Bryce. Okay, before we continue, I meant to say before, I can still say it now, that before we get started into discussion or public comment, I would like to ask that if there is any council member who feels that they may have a conflict with this agenda item for whatever reason that might lead you to recuse or abstain from voting, if you would please say so now, so that if you would please say so now, right, not when we get to the end. If you feel that you have that. I'm not suggesting anybody does. I'm just saying that if you do and that you think it might lead you to not being able to vote, if you would please leave the dais. Okay. All right. Thank you, Bryce. Okay, do we have any questions of Bryce at this point, or may I go to public comment? Okay, Councilmember Armendariz.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, in the equation, in terms of what percentage of the property will be enjoined within our city limits and which isn't, it comes to about 75%. Is that true?
Correct. About 75% would not fall under the prohibition areas.
Okay. Of that 75%, what percentage is private property? Because we
don't have a calculation separating that just because of the complexity and the time consumption of doing that. So we did by total area, but there is area within the prohibition areas that are residential and business property. So the 75, the percentage for both include residential and business.
And so any of those properties, business and residential as private property, can be enjoyed. There could be no trespass orders against anyone, right?
So are you asking?
So anyone who owns private property can ask or can enjoin somebody from trespassing on their property, correct?
Correct. They can take all authority within their rights as a property owner to address any trespass.
So I think my next question then is for Andy, did we have to come up with that equation to make sure that we were still falling within the law that we're getting very close to violating in terms of Boise?
If I may, Madam Mayor and members of the council, it is desirable in a law like this, of course, not to ban public camping, which is not what this ordinance does. It bans public camping in certain locations, and therefore it is important to show, as we've discussed before, that there are, in fact, locations that are not banned. And I think whether this percentage is one way to express one thought about it. It's not the final. It's not the final and only way one can look at it. However, it's kind of like, as we talked about some time ago, about regulating First Amendment bookstores or things like that. You have to allow certain areas for them, and in this ordinance, the intent is not to prohibit camping throughout the city.
But by including, I think it feels very much, not only inhumane, right, but also disingenuous to include that number without figuring out which percentage of that property is private, because you could still prohibit people. You could still put no trespassing signs on private property, and the city has no control over that. So I'd like to see we refine this, if it moves forward, to a more accurate number where the public and the city has, which is germane to the city. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Hilton?
Thank you. So this first question is for the city attorney. So I was looking back because we've had this meetings for a long time, different ones. At the March 20th meeting, you had mentioned how you removed the Creeks location from the draft ordinance because of current litigation over Public Records Act that we were included in from a 2018 encampment sweep where we were providing security for Valley Water. You had said if we were looking to add that back in there, that you would look at the ramifications, if we placed it back in there. So I asked this question on May 15th as well, but this current ordinance, do you still feel comfortable defending the city in regards to what potentially could be approved tonight?
The basic answer is yes. As I've explained before, the parameters of regulating this kind of thing vary, and they are not necessarily set in stone by the courts. And this is an ongoing matter that has been litigated in different cities. With respect to creeks, though, the goal was that the city would not be responsible for enforcing camping bans if there are such on creeks that are not owned by the city itself. And so that's how this is written now.
Okay. Bryce, this question would be for you. Do we still feel comfortable that there's 75 to 100 unhoused in the creek? That's what was reported a few weeks ago. Do we still feel it's that same number? And do we still feel like we have enough resources and we're ready over that 30-day period to get them housed?
So that was an estimate that was provided by qualified officers based on their experience. And again, it's a rough estimate, which is why there's such a broad range between the numbers, 75 to 100. As far as resources, we'll engage the service providers as best we can to engage that. But that's an enforcement is something that's going to depend on us, the qualified officers, as they engage with them, try to get voluntary compliance. But it's, we'll utilize the resources that we have as best that we can, but I can't give any sort of guarantee.
Understood. And then the map, we had talked about the GIS map, whether that would be available to the general public, those that are unhoused, like as a tool to be able to provide, because the chief talked about taking this as a compassionate, common sense approach, education, so that way that individual would know, well, I can't be here, and they won't play this game where they keep going to other places that they wouldn't be allowed, but they would actually know, kind of what Councilmember Armendariz was talking about, they would actually know where they can go. Is that going to be still available?
Yeah, so the map that was provided, so this map here, this is a rough one using Google Earth. And speaking with the GIS technician, what they'll do is once the boundaries are set, they will create static maps at that point, and it'll be a higher quality and be zoomed in close enough to better identify as far as where those boundaries, are where those prohibition area boundaries are within the city, and that will be available as basically handouts that qualified officers can use. We can put on the city website, etc.
And ones that we could access too, right? So anybody would know. My last question is that we talked about conversations with Valley Water and Caltrans, right, our other partners. And we know in the past that sweeps don't help either of our agencies. They cost a lot of money, disrupt a lot. And you had mentioned that if this goes through, that you would be doing those reach out. Like, is that like a staff to staff? Is that like a study session? Like, how do you look at that outreach happening beyond just sending an email and saying, hey, we're going to be doing this? There's a potential that, you could have people move into your area. How are we going to work cooperatively with them?
So I'll be reaching out to, there's a counterpart in Valley Water that we're working with on an earlier issue as well. And so we'll be reaching out to them to proceed through their respective channels to make sure that we're following their communication patterns, so to speak, within their organization.
Thank you.
I know. I'm going to go to Councilmember Tovar because Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. And Bryce, this might be a question for Chief Espinoza. It's regarding the enforcement. And first of all, before I ask my question, I want to thank everyone who reached out to me in regards to their questions and their concerns. And Chief, I had a chance to read this several times and talk to a lot of folks. And the one thing that kept coming up is the enforcement component of it. And in reading, obviously reading the report, what I read was that this ordinance is not to criminalize the unhoused, obviously, and it doesn't change or limit the amount of types of services that they can and deserve to have, obviously. And in reading this, and I think we've had this discussion, obviously, it's simply about creating a barrier around our schools, bridges, and creeks, obviously, for the safety of our children. But what kept coming back up is the enforcement component of it and how that kind of will play out. So, we had this discussion already, but maybe you can share that with the public in regards to what would happen if this does pass, move forward, and if there are unhoused that are in the designated areas, what's the process and how involved will our quality of life officers going to be involved? Because in reading this and talking with you and others, obviously, this can be an opportunity for us to work even more closely with the unhoused folks and try to provide them with the services that they need. But if you can walk us through that, appreciate it.
Yeah, the approach we've been using, and this is kind of more of a cooperation via education, and we've reached out in any particular area where a concern has been identified via a complaint or a member of the community. And so our community engagement team, our quality of life officers will go out there and offer to connect them with a local service provider. Certainly there are some individuals that just don't want the services, and so a different avenue was taken with them. If this ordinance is enacted and it becomes a misdemeanor, unless that individual has an arrest warrant or any of the prior matters, they're not physically going to get taken into custody. It'll be issued an administrative citation, and then post a citation, then that should have to be determined whether or not these types of matters are going to be heard once a month at Superior Court, and whether or not they're going to be offered the opportunity to go some sort of diversion program or seek services in return, like we've done in the past with community court. And so that's yet to be determined. But that's the approach. The approach will be to seek cooperation through education. But certainly there are those that we will have to take a different approach with.
Okay, Councilmember Armendariz.
My question is for Bryce. Again, Bryce, how many cities in our county have similar ordinances, and what kind of actual and successful mechanisms do they have for enforcement? Because I was reached out to by council members and the mayor from our surrounding cities who say that they don't have an enforcement mechanism that works or that isn't pending litigation right now.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a city in the county that has this ordinance in place.
None?
Not specifically this way.
Okay. Do we have, is it 21 speakers? Is that what I see?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have 21 speaker cards.
Okay, so no, it just means that everybody's time is only a minute. So I know. Do you want to? Yeah, I'm. I understand. I think for this, I think what I'd like to do, if it's okay with the council, is give everyone 2 minutes, All right, and hopefully everybody will be able to be brief. Some people may have already emailed because we got an awful lot of emails, so you can always refer to that if you want to save some time. Okay, so with that, if you know you are a speaker, if you could please move to the front row, and Ty, if you could go ahead and call, say, the first 5 or the first 4, however you want to do it.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The first 5 speakers, Deborah Flores, Vanessa Ashford, TJ Napiha, Robert Weevil.
I think that should be Weaver. Okay. Okay, that's good.
Ford.
That's good for now. Okay, great. Okay, so first speaker is ready to go.
Well, it's 2.5 minutes, so I'm going to speed read.
Speed read.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to address the proposed ordinance prohibiting the use of public rights-of-way as sleeping or living accommodations, specifically within 500 feet of a school. I support this ordinance and urge you to pass it at your next meeting. For many years, Solars Donald Middle School and Gilroy Prep School have been impacted by homeless encampments with as many as 75 homeless individuals living nearby. These individuals have engaged in these behaviors. They behave erratically, frightening children, been partially clothed, relieved themselves, started fires, used profanity, and leered at young girls as they walked home, among other behaviors that I don't have time to talk about. In addition, the district had spent $110,000 to clear the encampment next to Gilroy Prep School. In using some district funds, we were able to get a grant. I don't have time to go through that. But those funds should have been directed towards the educational needs of our students, not cleaning up a homeless encampment. Incredible amount of staff time was devoted to that and continues to this day monitoring the site. I know that the homeless issue is a complicated one requiring solutions that balance the needs of our homeless population with the needs of the community. However, I'm here to represent the needs of our children and youth, and that should be a top priority in my mind, and that we need to put their needs first. It's our obligation as a community to do everything we can to keep our children safe, including from those kind of behaviors while they're walking to and from school, in school, and as I've already enumerated. One of the district's top priorities is to provide the safest environments possible for our students and staff. We've implemented numerous programs to keep them safe. This ordinance will add another important layer of protection
I have to cut you
at
off.
these schools. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, next speaker.
So I want to start by saying 2 things. One, to follow up to Ms. Flores' comment, I also prioritize the safety and wellness of children in our community. And there are children who are living in homeless camps. And we have an obligation to them just as we do to the children with houses. Secondly, under enforcement on the proposed recommendation, it lists service providers contacting individuals within 30 days through the quality of life officers. Nobody has contacted the service providers from the council or city staff to ask us if we can. And the answer is we cannot. There is not staff. The Compassion Center, St. Joseph's, myself, and Pit Stop all wrote all council letters a letter. We do not have capacity. There are not resources. There is no shelter. So I'm not sure how that enforcement is going to work. Second of all, we have an entire network of providers that meet every month with city staff on city staff time and the quality of life officers. Nobody from the council or the city asked this service provider committee that meets every month for years on end, hey, what could we do about this? What are the solutions? Why are we meeting every month on unhoused issues if we're not a part of the city's solution finding? There was a gentleman who spoke at the beginning of the meeting from one of the local unions. That's where our solutions lie, in bridging the income disparity in Gilroy, the housing disparity. 36,000 Gilroy residents are on Medi-Cal. Does our housing look like it reflects that? It does not. Does our housing policy reflect that? It does not. I'm frustrated when I look at camps also. I am very frustrated because we have failed members of our community. This council represents our whole community, not just those with houses. We have failed members of our community, and I ask that we do better.
All right, next speaker. The next speaker.
TJ Napiha.
TJ? Someone named TJ?
Hi, I'm TJ. I'm just going to do this real quick. Klein, thank you for very much for coming out. I really appreciate it. I didn't get to see you, but I appreciate it. Second of all, as the lady just said just earlier, is there a place for us to go? All I hear is the negative, and if we don't have a place to go, this is going to continue. And yes, I agree with the woman. I've been in the system for 10 years. It's failed us. I'm an instructional associate, and for the parents in the room, I agree. Children do come first. I've been doing it for 20 years, and I still held my job, and still was homeless for 10 of those years. Long and the short of it, if we don't have solutions, how are we going to change things? We talk about being Gilroy strong. We're not. Thank you.
All right, next speaker, Robert Weaver.
Robert Weaver. Good evening. I want to compliment the council and the city for having to endeavor to take this item up for consideration. It's a topic that's highly, controversial. I want you to think clearly tonight as you're deliberating and think about all the people who aren't here, the parents, the people who live here, who are going about their daily lives, who are looking to you for solutions. This kind of a discussion often brings out the more extreme elements in our community to advocate for their position. I would like you, during your deliberations, to think a minute, close your eyes, and think about Gilroy, all the way from Gavilan to Christopher, from the wineries to Old Gilroy. Think about those people who aren't here tonight, who you should be thinking about as you do your deliberations. It has been said that good governance is the effective use of taxpayers' money for return on investment. And what we have seen from federal, state, and local is failure, yet we still reward them. Perhaps if we were to take and have a slightly different approach and have a articulable or demonstrable or significant change in the homeless solution, we should consider rewarding those folks. But to give money to the same people for no benefit, no change, you're rewarding failure. So please think about all the people who aren't here tonight. You're working for them too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's Jeff Orth is next. I can do this.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Let me speak for the next four.
Sure.
Jeff Orth, followed by Herman Garcia, followed by Linda Piceno, and followed by Hilda Aguirre.
Okay, so if your name was called, please make sure you're in the front row. Please, go ahead,
All right,
Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You've got a really tough decision ahead of you. I'm Jeff Orth. I'm a concerned citizen. I happen to be chairman of the Gilroy Downtown Business Association, and I'm here to talk about the homeless situation in Gilroy. While I appreciate the city's attempt to deal with the homeless problem in our parks and in public areas, I am concerned that our downtown area is being left out of the discussion. There have been several incidents that I am aware of where some homeless individuals have threatened, frightened citizens and members of the business community, including incidents of indecent exposure and horribly aberrant behavior. I do not deny that these individuals oftentimes have mental and health issues and drug issues that need help, and they seriously need our help. However, our citizens also have rights, and they do need to not bear the brunt of these actions, making them fearful to come downtown and make it harder for businesses in the downtown to survive. So please do not fail to include our downtown business when you're considering the policies to address these actions of the homeless population in our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next speaker is Herman Garcia.
Hello, my name is Herman Garcia, founding president of CHEER,
and I only have one message for you, and it's the most important message for the entire community. The 4 essential elements required for life on this earth: water, air, soil, and fire, the sun. If one of those essential elements is missing, we all die. And everybody requires quality drinking water, including the homeless. So your number one priority should be to protect our water resources with this ordinance. And last I heard, homeless also drink water. So please make sure that you consider that one most important message: protection of our water quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Linda Pisano.
Good evening. Well, we know we've had a homeless problem, a serious homeless problem for over 35 years. And unfortunately, the feds, the state, the county, and even cities have not solved it. And I would sadly say there's not one person in this room who can solve it. It is a very complex issue. And as I was reading through the emails that you received for tonight, one of your nonprofits said, they have been treating the homeless here in Gilroy for 35 years. PTSD, anxiety, addiction, untreated mental health is a major cause of addiction. Providing a home by itself is not the solution, but we don't even have that solution. We, as a board, as a school board, are responsible for the safety of 10,000 students. They are also your constituents. Of those 10,000 students, about 200 are homeless. They reflect 8,000 families. We are the largest employer in Gilroy with 1,100 employees. They also come under our safety net and your constituents. I don't have answers for the homeless. I wish I did. You wish you did. But the bottom line is we have to protect our students, and I ask you to seriously look at this. And if you change it, please keep schools in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Hilda Aguirre, yes.
Dear members of the City Council, I am Hilda Aguirre, the proud principal of Ascension Solosano Middle School, and here tonight to address the growing concern that has been brought to my attention by my parents and staff members. As you may be aware, there has been an increase of the number of homeless people around our campus, and this has raised concerns about the safety of our students. While we understand that the homelessness is a complex issue that requires a comprehensive solution, we cannot ignore the impact that it has on our school community. Our students and staff have reported feeling unsafe, uncomfortable when walking to and from school, and we have seen an increase of incidents of vandalism and theft on our campus. We believe that it is the responsibility of the city to ensure the safety of our students and staff, and we are asking for your help in addressing this issue. We would like to see the ordinance prohibiting the use of public rights of use of sleeping or living accommodations, especially within the 500 feet of schools, be passed. We understand that this is a difficult issue and that there is no easy solution. However, I believe by working together, we can find a way to ensure the safety of our students while also addressing the needs of our homeless population. I urge you to take this issue seriously, to work with us to find a solution that works for everyone. Our students deserve to feel safe and secure in their learning environment, and we are counting on you to help us make that reality. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you for being here. Okay, the next five speak. Go ahead if you've got it.
Yes, Madam Mayor,
Okay.
I have the next four speakers as Susan Mister, Joseph Robinson, Ron Kirkish, followed by Jan Bernstein-Chargan.
Yes. Okay. So if all of those names could please be in the front. Okay.
Thank you for that extension of time. So now, since I wrote anticipating just a minute, I will speak very slowly. Thank you. Good evening, council members and Mayor Blankley. My name is Susan Mister, and I live in unincorporated Gilroy, where my neighborhood has homeless living under a bridge. I appreciate the attention this concern is getting, but I truly think it's just another costly Band-Aid fix. When Johnny Camus was running for supervisor, he had a concept that would utilize the new county facilities in Morgan Hill and Gilroy to treat and prepare the 42% alcoholic drug dependent and 35% mentally disabled homeless for a future. Not only would this get 75% off the streets, but prayerfully prepare them for a future living within society. Since Mr. Camus was not elected, I would like to suggest to all of you, especially to you council members Armendariz and Hilton, to speak to your friend and fellow Democrat, Sylvia Arenas, to consider a program such as this. There are some that don't want to live in a home, but would rather depend on the handouts from local organizations. But I would be more than willing for my tax money to go to helping those that want help, rather than throwing money under the bridge, literally. Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker is Joseph Robinson.
So here we are again, just extending the disingenuous approach. Really what this is all about is that Boise decision, which says that, you can't remove an encampment without providing some kind of a shelter bed. You have to have something in mind. And they thought that will tie their hands behind their back because they want to do something, a little bit more barbaric to the poor. And it's just galling to hear, all of these educators and administrators come up and admit that, yes, there's some people are homeless and blah, 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 but we have to do something around the schools. I think that we have to actually lift a finger or two to do something about the homelessness. And I hate to hear all of that. I hate to hear all of, frankly, the phony crocodile tears. And so I'm going to take a moment to not be phony and talk about the fact that Gilroy has a long history of having right-wing groups in it. And if there's a new book out called Birchers about the John Birch Society, and I think people should read about it as they're appealing to the council. They should know that the John Birch Society has a presence in Gilroy, and there are other right-wing groups that do too, and that they don't have any interest in any of the soft treatment of homeless people that they would accuse us of. But they have to do that in order to keep their respectability. Same with those people who are coming here from the schools. Thank you.
All right. Next speaker is Ron Kirkish.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, community. I think most of the issue is circulated around the Yuvas Creek area. Obviously, to me, that's the prime problem, where we have, like we said, 70 people, at least, maybe more, camping in there. A couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago or so, the restroom at Christmas Hill Park was burnt down. We don't know who did it, but we know that there's a lot of homeless in that area. We also had a major fire. Well, not a major fire, but a grass fire. When I spoke to the captain of the fire department, I asked him, is there homeless in here? He goes, Ron, there's a ton of homeless encampments in there. And though they can't say that it was homeless, it was in that area. Today, I was informed that there was a fire underneath in the area, grassy area, by the 10th Street Bridge again, that there was homeless in there and a fire was there. I drove by with my wife to go to Walmart, and we saw them, and they confirmed that there was a fire in that area. The Uvis Reservoir, or the Uvis Creek area, should be a preserve for animals like bobcats, snakes, lizards, for birds of prey. It shouldn't be molested by people in there starting fires, by people in there chopping down trees. I sent you all some pictures of that. I took the fire pictures. Another individual took the pictures with the gentleman holding the axe chopping down trees in that area. That's a preserve. Herman just spoke. He's worried about our fish, our steelhead.
Time, I'm sorry, the
Okay.
2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, though. I would ask everyone to please be respectful. When someone is speaking, that is their opinion, that is their time. It is not for others to criticize what somebody else would like to say. Thank you. Okay? Jan?
I think I'm next.
Yes, you are next.
Very good. Thank you. You know, I raise kids here in Gilroy, and the safety of schools, the safety of kids, that's paramount for all of us. You know, this ordinance doesn't do what it pretends to do, and that's what I'm concerned about. There's a presumption that homeless people are dangerous. So therefore, we're going to remove all of them. Could there be some people who are homeless who are also dangerous? Yes. And you know what? A Gilroy resident who lived in a really nice house was arrested the other day for his role in a shooting with a road rage incident. But we're not evacuating his entire neighborhood on the concept that everybody who lives there should be presumed guilty, right? I was raised at a time when we had this quaint idea about a presumption of innocence, right? It's old-fashioned. It's in this you might have read it, the Constitution, and I know every single person up here took an oath of office in which you promised, you swore not to grudgingly acquiesce to the Constitution, but to uphold and defend it. That means even against opposition. That means even when other people want you to do the easy thing and pretend something is what it isn't. You know better. Go home and look in the mirror, right? Go look at who you see there. You know what you have to do.
All right, thank you. Next speaker is Wes White.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The next speakers are Wes White, Robert Aguirre, Linda Layton, followed by Kirsten Carr.
Hello, Wes White, Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union, California Homeless Union, National Union of Homeless, part of the Poor People's Campaign, and National Call for Moral Revival. Calling to ask for your vote against this item. It is open discrimination at its finest that everybody does. You think about like the Beatitudes. I mean, I grew up being a Christian, and that actually drove me and compelled me to do this work because there are people suffering, and your mission field is right outside your front door. There's so much need in the world. So my question is, where do they go? If they don't belong there, where do they go, Gilroy? Where do they belong? They need to be somewhere. I mean, I'll throw out there 400 square feet in the structure. There's trailers. There's running water and electricity. If we want everyone to be safe, right? And there's even, like was mentioned, children who are homeless too. So those are vulnerable, completely innocent people. What are you going to do for those folks? And how do we maximize this and make it scalable toward functional zero? If the behavior is drug addiction and indecent exposure to these things, walls. Everything that happens right next door to you is happening outside. It's just that they don't have walls to cover it. What they need is a door that locks and a roof, somewhere to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So the ultimate question is, where do they go? If you really want to solve it, then compartmentalize it so that they're somewhere. Please, stop the sweeps.
All right, thank you. Next speaker is Linda Layton. Oh, sorry, Robert Aguirre. I'm sorry. No, you are. You're next. That's what I get for trying to help the city clerk. Okay.
I was wondering if it's possible to pull up the map. I don't know. Can you pull up the map that you had? Can we do that? I'd like.
You have your time is running. It's okay.
So the answer is no. Okay. Well. All right. I find it very interesting that the map shows these areas where people aren't allowed. Thank you. Redlined. Okay. Does that bring back any kind of thoughts or memories about redlining, about how we keep people out of certain areas or we confine people to certain areas? I think that's what you're doing here. And I think you're going to end up on the wrong side of history when later on they find out that this council actually voted to redline people and not allow certain people to be in certain areas. That was proven to be a big mistake, and many statues of people that were supportive of that have been taken down. So I ask all of you to just search yourself and find out yourself if you think that you want to be on the side that will come down in history of people that actually persecuted, that went against people and not allowing them to have a peaceful place to be. You talk about danger. Just before getting up here, I ran Megan's Law. There are 418 registered sex offenders living in your community. 112 of those are in violation. If you want to be concerned about people that might threaten you or your children, go look up these people, okay? Because they're more likely to do something against your children or your wife or your whoever your people that you love, more so than people that are only trying to survive. People that are living outdoors, that are there, again, against their own will. They have no other place to go, and this is their lot in life right now. And so rather than try to criminalize them, push them away as to either restrict them to certain areas or ban them from certain areas, which is the way society is done.
Time is up, but thank you. Point taken. Thank you. All right, now the next speaker is Linda. Yes.
Hi, my name is Linda Layton, and again, I'm going to try not to cry, but I am one of those homeless people who you speak of. I'm going to read from this thing, though. I've done some great things in my life. There was a project here in Gilroy when I first got back here that was a Good Samaritan project. I was one of 7 women who graduated out of 2,000 people. One of 7 women who graduated that program. It was called the Good Samaritan Project. And out of the 7 women, I was one of 2 who founded or put together the first women's support group that was registered here in this town. As soon as I graduated, that all ended. Nobody followed our footsteps to keep it going. I don't have any felonies. I've never been really in trouble to per se so much, you know. But now I'm afraid I'm going to be cited. I'm going to be in trouble for not having a home. You say you have those police that are now that's called, what are they called? The quality control people. This quality control group that you have, one of these officers told me when I just tried to make a report of something that was done to me, he told me to use street justice. Now, when do you hear that? I have to use my own type of justice instead of, because I'm not counted as everybody else, to have the police, you know, to do what they're supposed to do for me. Because they put me into a group with everybody else. Let's see. Also, I heard in the last meeting that they were saying that first it was about the water contamination. I believe I heard that the contaminated water was from years ago, and it was the couple of the top watersheds, not the downtown watersheds. And so that wouldn't be the people. That would be probably agriculture. I don't know. But anyhow, let's see. I have little notes, but I don't even know what to do. I guess that's all. I don't know. I'm frustrated. Thank you.
Okay. Kirsten?
Good evening, Council. I am Kirsten Carr. I am both a Gilroy resident as well as a representative of Navigator Schools. We're the charter management organization Gilroy Prep School belongs with our charter management organization. We as an organization are committed to improving our communities through education. We do that by providing a strong foundation for our students to succeed in high school, college, and beyond. To do that, we need them to be able to learn in a safe environment. We need our families to feel safe as they're walking their students to school. We need our staff members to feel safe while they are teaching. You heard Dr. Flores talk about some of the things that have happened over the last few years with the fires, indecent exposure, drug use. We have now had to hire our own security guard. This is money that is not going into our classrooms anymore. We appreciate all of the decision you have before you. We understand the complexities, and we do urge you to please vote in support of this ordinance. Our students, our families, and our community deserves it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the next 4 speakers are Tristia Baumann, followed by Des Martinez, followed by Sarina Jacobson, followed by Sally Armendariz.
Okay, if your name was called, could you please make sure you're sitting in the front row? And at the podium should be Tristia.
Hello, thank you. My name is Tristia Baumann. I'm a Gilroy resident. I also have 17 years of legal experience focused primarily on combating policies that criminalize homelessness. The majority of the time that I have been an attorney, I worked at the National Homelessness Law Center, where I studied 187 cities' policies since 2006 and tracked the failure of those policies like the proposal as written before this council, that have not only subjected cities to expensive litigation, but failed to achieve any constructive policy goal. That office is the office that filed Martin v. City of Boise. It was my office that brought and won that case, resulting in the binding Ninth Circuit precedent that has been the focus of this council's discussion around how to regulate public space. I also launched the Housing Not Handcuffs Justice Network, which is a network of litigators across the country working to combat laws that criminalize homelessness. I'm currently the directing attorney of housing at the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley, the largest provider of legal services here in this Santa Clara County. I give you my background to say that as written, and it should be clear to this council, as written, this policy does expose this city to expensive litigation for violating multiple constitutional rights of unhoused people, including the Eighth Amendment. And I know that I have only a brief moment, so I'll be very clear. This policy, as written, targets the same conduct that was at issue in Boise. It would be enforced against people that do not have access to housing or shelter alternatives. The proposal seems to hinge on the fact, referencing a single line in a footnote of the Martin decision, that there may be spaces outside of the banned areas where people can be, which would lead to theoretically a conclusion that people are not being punished for their status as unhoused people. But this council has not been presented with any public information showing where people can be. In fact, that's what you've heard from members of the audience. People do not know where they can be.
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Des Martinez. Des.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak again. I would say that listening to everybody, I heard a lot of support, but I also heard a lot of complaints with no solutions given to you guys. So I want to give you guys some solutions. It's called Resources for Harm Reduction. It is, and I heard you guys do that today. Great. That's amazing. Thank you guys for doing that. But resources, affordable housing. You need transitional housing. We need housing and shelters for women and children or children with families. We need shelters for people that are coming out of rehab. You want them to go to rehab? Well, where are they going after they get out of rehab? They're going back to the streets where they're going to have to use substance abuse again, all over again. We need mental health services provided for individuals. We need housing after they go to mental health services. As long as there's no option of sleeping indoors, the government cannot criminalize unhoused people for sleeping outdoors on public property on the false premise that they had a choice in the matter. I'm listening to a lot of violations, you guys, and I'm concerned for Gilroy because, like the lady said before me, you guys are setting yourselves up. And I don't know if you guys don't have an attorney here, but I mean, I would think that the city attorney would look into the lawsuits that happened. LA started this, right? everybody's falling. I mean, your guys' ordinance reads like the LA, but did you know that LA got sued after the fact? And I see you looking at the time, so let me go ahead and talk real fast because I don't think you're paying attention to me, swear. So LA and Chico, look into the Chico one. Chico got sued for this also. This should be a concern to you guys because even though these have been enforced in other cities have been sued. They have won. Not only that, there are pending lawsuits that are going on in other cities right now. So I would be concerned, Mayor, I would definitely be concerned, and I would look into these lawsuits, and I would definitely speak to my city council about finding other solutions. There is nothing that we can do without having a place to go.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Serena Jacobson. Serena Jacobson.
Hello, I am a Gilroy resident and a mother of a stepson, 6 years old. This was our third year living in Gilroy. We did not know what we were walking into, walking my son up and seeing the encampment, the fires, everything that everyone's been talking about. I am very sympathetic to people going through a hard time, and I do believe more help needs to be out there. Kids, ours that have homes and those that don't, every single person needs to be safe. The women are not protected at night. They're being raped. Something needs to be instilled. Doing nothing is not helping. My son goes to Tiny Tots daycare, which they have belligerent homeless constantly trashing. He also goes to Gilroy Prep. As I've said, I've personally been harassed by an angry, aggressive man, terrified to walk my son to school, anxiety-ridden on what next door post I'm going to get. Walk up to pick up my son to see an officer politely asking someone, please, can we just go this way? Him screaming behind my son's classroom. Say this person has a weapon and pop something off. I'm supposed to just trust that this person is safe. We need to focus on the children. And yes, also use the nonprofits to your advantage to get help to people that need it. Use them. Use your power to get what we all want. Safety for all, everyone. And yes, kids are a priority for all, like everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker is Sally Armendariz, and then Valentina Renales.
Okay. This ordinance really does nothing to remedy the situation that we have. I ask you all of you up here, to remember your Christian values when you take a vote on this ordinance today. All of you sit up here as elected officials who have taken the oath to uphold the Constitution, to serve the residents of Gilroy. Some of you, as you go to church, claim to be Christians. Yet this ordinance, if you vote on this ordinance, you are turning your face on other human beings who are less fortunate than you, and that's to be shameful. A place to sleep, food in your belly is as essential as the air we breathe. I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble breathing. Being poor, being unhoused is not a crime. Officials pretending Gilroy has no responsibility to the unhoused is a crime against humanity. You have taken an oath to protect the citizens of Gilroy. The unhoused are residents of Gilroy. If in your life as a Christian or your position as a city council person you cannot protect all Gilroyans, then resign. Like I said in the beginning, I ask you to use your Christian values when you vote for this, when you are protecting the unhoused who are there, well, not choice, but because they don't have the same means of quality of life that you people up here do. You know, these are human beings that some of you probably even went to school with some of them because they are Gilroy residents. That's what I have to say. Thank you. Sorry, I can't talk.
Thank you. Okay, Valentina Renales, followed by Jose Montez, and then Gary Walton.
Hello, my name is Valentina Renales. I am one of the ones that brought this, I feel like it was 6 months ago, in front of you guys to talk about this. As much as I am an advocate for the houseless, I'm also a system impacted myself. I have lost both parents from addiction. My brother is currently homeless, struggling with not only drug addiction but mental health. In 2001, they were writing songs about this particular matter, unfortunately, like drug addiction and mental health, research and successful drug policy show that treatment should be increased, law enforcement decreased while abolishing mandatory minimum sentences. Now, with that said, we need to do something for this community. I was here when I was 14 years old. I'm 44. We didn't have alcohol and drug programs. We didn't have homeless. San Jose has the same problem. Kid Collegiate just was in front of the board, the students saying, hey, we need to do something. We have people slamming in the bathrooms. My buck stops when it comes to kids. The stuff that those kids at that school were exposed to through the fence is asinine. And as much as we want to go back and forth, we need to realize we got to do something to put in place to protect the barrier of the kids. The fact I brought this up, the fact that we deal with this over here, there's a park up by Luigi Aprea, like there's a park there. I don't see homeless there. It wouldn't happen on that side of town, but yet we tolerate it on this side of town. This community deserves better. I'm not bashing the houseless. I'm not bashing this community. Gilroy needs to do better. What I'm saying is we got to draw the line and we got to start somewhere of having the bare minimum of our students deserve better in this community. Like whether it's 500, whatever we agree on, getting our students protected so that they have a way to and from school that's not interrupted with all this unnecessary stuff. We have, and everybody that's here advocating for the kids, man, I hope I see you at the school board meeting too.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Jose Montez and then Gary Walton.
Good evening, members of the City Council. You know, I've been homeless twice in my life, but I never disrespect property. Being homeless is not a crime. Being poor is not a crime. But it is a crime when the homeless defecate in front of your building. It is a crime when the homeless break into your property and you call the police that there's nothing they can do. Because by the time the police come, it's probably 10 or 12 hours later because it's not an emergency, because life is not a threat. If you're going to put money into homeless, I understand it's a very sensitive issue, but you rather put it in homeless or you put it into children? There's one issue that nobody spoke about, but we tried to box the homeless all, put them all in one basket. There's some homeless that really need help. We need to help them. But there's some homeless, they choose to be homeless and they don't want help. So what do you want to do about that? And those are the homeless that cause a lot of problems in our community, cause problems to our property. If we continue the way we're going, well, soon we're going to be homeless ourselves because they're depriving pretty much our property rights. We can't even lease our buildings because they're defecating right next in the front door, or they break into your front door. It's a very difficult situation, I understand, but I think there's homeless that need help, and there's some homeless that don't want help. So I hope you really look into the possibility of protecting us all, not just the homeless, because it seems like homeless have more rights than property owners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. I encourage you to really consider unintended consequences of your actions. It's kind of like a balloon. You push on this side, and it goes out on this side. So if you remove the homeless from the creeks, where are they going to go? And as a downtown property owner, we get our fair share. And, we get a fair share that tend to be vocal, harassing. It may not be illegal to be homeless, but other actions that they have are, and those should be enforced. You have certain standards that the community should enforce. You shouldn't allow defecating in public, urinating in public, threatening behavior, sleeping on business doorsteps, breaking into buildings, and generally trashing everything. So, I think that it's great that you're trying to figure out what the solution is. All communities are. But I think the one thing, that I've seen success in is the cities that have standards and are willing to enforce them. And that's my charge to you, is you have standards. There are codes about it. Enforce them. It's not illegal to be homeless, but their behavior is. And that's what you need to do. If you want to, there's not enough money to pay for all the housing that everybody wants. An average apartment runs $500,000 to $800,000. You're never going to house all these people, ever. Services are great. Put them into housing where you can. There are people that are working on that. Treatment, but there are a lot of people, they like the life of just being homeless. But that doesn't mean you have to put up with their behavior. And that's what I'm asking you, is have some standards and enforce those standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I see no other speakers. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so closing public comment at 7:45. I'm sorry, I neglected to announce the time we started. You got that? Okay, so then that brings us back to council. I'm sure everybody's going to want to at least express themselves, so I will just start with the first person to put their hand up on the speaker, or let me see your hand if there's anybody who wants to speak. Okay, Councilmember Armendariz. Oh, I'm sorry, I looked at her first.
Go ahead.
Okay, Councilmember Tovar, and then Councilmember Armendariz.
Oh, thank you, Mayor, and thank you everybody who spoke tonight. I think everything that was said tonight, I think all of us up here, we're compassionate to everything that you've discussed, and finding the solutions obviously is very difficult. I mean, again, but we have to start somewhere. This is a question for our city attorney, Andy, and thank you for bringing that. You talked about the lawsuits and setting ourselves up for multiple lawsuits. Andy, the way this ordinance is written currently, do you feel that that's the case? That if we move forward with this, are we putting ourselves in harm's way in regards to lawsuits?
As I've said before, we believe the lawsuit as written is enforceable and is valid and is not unconstitutional. We cannot prevent other people who feel differently from filing a lawsuit if that's what they want to do.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to say, and I said earlier, I mean, again, when in reading the ordinance and talking, I mean, again, I'm going to vote in favor of it because, again, it's when this was originally brought up, it was for the safety not only of our kids but also the employees in the community. So that for me takes precedence over this because we need to protect our children. But again, it should not stop us from, again, as what was mentioned earlier, working with our county supervisor or whomever we have to work with to get the services that we need out here because it was mentioned earlier that we did not have a homeless sort of advocate group. We did have a homeless ad hoc group that met for a year, and we spoke with many, many different folks. We even spoke with homeless individuals, unhoused individuals, and trying to find the solutions. It was not just a discussion, it was trying to find solutions. And I think the whole committee and the council worked really, really hard to see what we can do currently. And again, unfortunately, we didn't come up with, with all the solutions, but we came up with some things that we thought that might work. So again, when I look at this, obviously, and I think for me, when you look at this, I look at it again, and I said it earlier, I think it's an opportunity for us, whichever direction this ordinance goes, I think it's an opportunity for us to continue to work directly with the unhoused community. And I appreciate Chief Espinosa for laying that out because, again, I think that was my biggest concern is the enforcement because, again, I don't want us to mistreat anybody, but I think you laid that out perfectly. So, again, I'm going to vote in favor of this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Armendariz.
Thank you, Mayor. So I won't be supporting this ordinance as it currently stands. I think it's overreaching. I think it's discriminatory. I think, of course, we protect our schools. Of course, we protect our playgrounds and daycares from criminal behavior. But we do it across the board. We don't make assumptions that the unhoused are the ones who commit every crime. As somebody pointed out, we have tons of people on Megan's list who are in violation, and we've not focused on them in any way or asked our police department to focus on them. I think that If we are writing a policy that's barely legal, that's barely constitutional, and we're directing staff to do that, we need to stop and take a look at ourselves and say, why are we doing this? What kind of bullies are we being when we're focusing on people who are already downtrodden, already are most marginalized, already living in a way that they don't want to live, already forced to live in poverty, right, on the margins of our community. And we take these actions because we don't want to see poor people. We don't want to see things that offend us or make us reflect on ourselves. And I think that's really evident when we look at what we've invested in. We've invested the most money in police officers. We've invested the most money in dump trucks. And we've invested the most money in staff to pick up trash, not to do anything substantial to help the homeless or help one person out of living in the camps. So, legal or not, what we're doing is unethical, it's immoral, and our country has a long history of passing laws that, although they are legal, they were inhumane, they were genocidal, they were anti-Native, anti-Black, anti-Mexican, anti-Asian, anti-women, anti-LGBTQ, and I think that this ordinance is discriminatory. I think we're leading ourselves into some expensive litigation, and I myself am going to vote against it, and I hope that you will consider it too.
All right, Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you. Thank you. First off, I am still uncomfortable, like I was on May 15th, with certain parts of this ordinance and supportive of other parts. Not all legislation is perfect. If many of you have followed other legislation here, there's a give, there's a take. Someone mentioned it like a balloon. I believe this one is trying to strike a balance. The scope of the initial language was too big for me. It was too big for many of us back in March, and most of us would not approve it back then, especially when it came to preventing anyone from laying, sitting, sleeping in a park or taking a nap. I appreciate us moving that language when it was discovered during the March 20th meeting by Councilmember Armendariz. But like the chief said and told us on May 15th, the intentions of his officers when it comes to enforcing this in our parks and anywhere else would be through a common sense approach, case by case basis, and not profiling. And I'm going to hold them to that. This would allow our unhoused families whose students attend school to enjoy the park while their child goes to school if they wish. It also provides flexibility to our foster youth that attend schools, and maybe they don't want to go home right away after school and enjoy the park. It will allow our youth and residents that don't have a home life that's positive to go home to, whether you're housed or unhoused, affects anyone from east to west. It'll allow them to have parks as a safe place and a chance away from your life. I get that. When we have a focus on critical safety to our infrastructure, I am supportive of this legislation. This is not an unhoused prevention policy by any means and has a narrow focus compared to what it was before. The burden is on staff to make sure we follow procedures perfectly, or else we'll be subjecting ourselves to litigation. If this piece of legislation needs to change, then I would expect staff to bring that back to us or a member of this council to bring that back. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Marks.
Define reality resonated with me tonight because this is a reality. And the Boise decision said it's not illegal to camp on government property, but it also went on to say it is illegal to commit crimes. You know, I listened this evening about partnerships, and I really don't see a lot of our partnerships out at Los Animas Park. That park has gotten very sketchy the last 3 weeks. I'm out there 2 to 3 times a week. There's ranting, they're raving, it's very unsafe behavior. There's a woman who chases people out of the dog park and she can only say one word at the top of her lungs and begins with F. It's something that I would not want my grandchildren to be around. We were even scared when we were accosted on the tennis courts by a man high on drugs 2 weeks ago, and it took 7 officers that arrived to take care of the situation. These are our parks. And, you know, with this decision, I have nothing against an unhoused going in and sitting on a bench, taking a nap on the grass. But I do have a problem with someone who's making our lives dangerous to be out there because of their mental instability. So where do we go from there? Yes, we do have to do something. I'm going to ask my council members and mayor to do something with me. Sylvia Reynes, our supervisor, has to get down here, and she has to help us. Because I know Councilmember Bronco and I have asked to meet with her. She has canceled repeatedly. She doesn't come down here. That's a disgrace. Because she was elected to represent every city in her district. We don't need rehab counseling for 1 hour a week or 1 hour a day. We need a facility that really deals with the problem. And they go into training, they get the counseling, they get on proper meds. Let's return these people to society and not just throw them away. I don't know what the answer is, but I am supporting this tonight because our children should not have to be subjected to the violence that has been seen around, especially Gilroy Prep School. When a mother goes to pick up her child and she's faced with a gun at her window, and she wrote to all of his council members about it. So I do believe it happened. That's wrong. And for all the people who are sitting here that, make all these statements, yes, it's sad. I feel sorry for all the people. And I do worry about the women in the encampments. It's not safe. And all of you that have dealings with the encampments, it's not safe for the women and the children that are there. But it's also not safe for our children. And no one should have to be afraid to go out of their way to walk their child to a school. And that's what it's become for many of our school campuses. So the people who came here tonight, I'm sure you are the most law-abiding people. I really do. I think your hearts are in the right place, and you're not the ones who are causing the problems. Unfortunately, it's the ones that are committing the crimes, that are screaming, that are out of control, that everyone seems to focus on. So we need help. We just need help.
Okay, that's it. Councilmember Bracco?
Yes. As some of you may know, I was once homeless, and I was on drugs. And I was one of the founding board members of the Compassion Center along with Jan. But to me, the homeless population has changed a lot. I work with homeless folks in my business. There's some that we're able to help. There's some that we have to actually call the police on to remove from the premises because they're violent, they're armed, and the homeless population has refused to police themselves. So now we're left at a point where something needs to be done. The citizens of Gilroy, you say, they're not bothering anybody at the creek. There's people that live along the Uvis Creek, and we hear from them that, their fences are getting on fire. They're climbing over their fence into their backyard. They're harassing them. So something needs to be done. Like Councilmember Mark said, we were working with Supervisor Wasserman when he was our supervisor, trying to start build a facility out at the hospital because it's all county land out there. And it was moving forward until our new supervisor, we have tried to meet with her, we've called her, she doesn't even return calls. So there's where we need to do something. We need you folks to start calling her office and saying, why aren't you down here? Why aren't you helping us? Because she's not. So that would be good. We do have other supervisors that are willing to help us, that are from other areas, and we're going to be working with them. So I'm going to support this tonight. I think it's a step in the right direction. It's not unconstitutional, I don't believe, because we're not saying you can't camp anywhere. We're saying these areas that like the Uvis Creek, it's a waterway. That water percolates into the ground and we drink that water. So it needs to be protected. There used to be a very substantial steelhead population out there. No more, they're gone. So we need to continue to move forward on this. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Klein.
Thank you, Mayor.
If you have a conversation, could you please take it outside? Okay.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight and sharing. There is a lot of emotions in this room as we've gathered to discuss these issues that affect us all. Some bring us together and some pull us apart. I'm going to speak for a moment on what should be the guiding principle that brings us together. I believe we are all made in the image of God. I also believe the golden rule, that we are to treat others as we expect to be treated. As a new council member, I swore an oath to support and uphold the Constitution. With that, the laws that make us who we are. These laws are guardrails that provide protection for the civil society that we all live in. And the ordinances we as a council must review and adopt add to the guardrails at a local level. They are not aimed at taking any rights away from anyone. They are put in place to safeguard the community as a whole while seeking ways to help those who are in need. The proposed budget for 2024 and 2025 demonstrate that the city is putting resources in the community in many different ways. But we know the resources are limited, and the times we are living in, the revenue is becoming scarcer and the needs are getting greater. Our task as the council is to work with staff to figure out ways to work with the local agencies, service providers, and nonprofits who are on the front lines to these challenges. There is a common ground that we share, but we can only find it if we are willing to listen and work together for the betterment of our community. Thank you.
Councilmember Armendariz, are you speaking again, or did you not lower your hand?
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I think it's unfair that we speak against a fellow elected person who is not here to speak and defend herself. Supervisor Arenas has been to Gilroy. She has met with numerous community members as soon as I think she was here during this past couple of weeks at St. Louis Hospital. She's motioned and passed lots of resources to help people in our community, including greater staffing at St. Louis Hospital, and put in motions which are in play currently to get more resources for our community at St. Louis Hospital and at the DePaul Medical Center in Morgan Hill. So I don't think it's fair that we make those statements that are not true. She also has a staff person assigned to our area. And so I think we should be more respectful in that. And regarding this issue in particular, I also think that when we say that we care about the women and children in the camps, I don't think that by voting to push them out further in the margins in our community makes them any safer. I think we're being disingenuous. So again, it's not our place to criminalize people. It's not our place to discriminate against people based on their class or their ability to have enough money to put a roof over their own heads. And I think we're skating here on really thin ice.
Okay. I'm going to give my comments, which are not too dissimilar to what I said at the last meeting. I do want to thank everybody who has taken the time to write, call, email, come here tonight, speak. I mean, this is what we need. We need the community to come out at the time that we're trying to do something. This is not the first time, though, that we've heard this issue. This has been something, for those who may not be aware, that has been ongoing for about a year at least, starting with our ad hoc committee trying to figure out how to draw the line, so to speak. So we wouldn't be here if at issue were solely sitting, sleeping, lying, or using and carrying or placing personal property in public spaces. We wouldn't. We're here in response to very real threats to public safety based on numerous reports by residents, school parents, businesses, daycare operators, and to what our city staff has discovered in responding to these complaints and clearing out encampments. This ordinance seeks to balance the ability of all members of the public to use public spaces with safeguards for areas where threats to public safety are the most grave and can cause the most harm. That's what we're trying to do. Do we have a sworn duty to all our residents? Absolutely. Does that mean we look the other way when one causes harm to another, or when someone compromises the structural integrity of infrastructure we all rely on every day and assume is safe? Our sworn duty is to the safety of the public at large, and for that we have a duty to act when public safety is threatened, and that's what we're trying to do. This council is laser focused on housing. I said this last time. There hasn't been a single housing development proposal to come before us that we denied, this council, since I've been on in 2018. With the exception of the VTA proposed development, because it was to consume a large portion of what is supposed to be our thriving transit center first. And knowing that the county had Measure A dollars set aside for that proposal, we went after those same dollars to get a better housing development that was 100% affordable. There was no market rate housing in it at all, and half of it dedicated solely to very low and extremely low income housing. That is a plus. We all, when we take office, swear to uphold the Constitution, but our actual jurisdiction is limited to the city charter. That's what we use as what our jurisdiction allows us to do. That's our primary duty, and that means we're responsible to provide essential city services first: our police, our fire, emergency medical response, streets, sewer, water, etc. Since last fall, the city administrator and I have toured interim housing sites both inside and outside of Santa Clara County, together with the service providers, so that we could ascertain what it would mean to have such a site in Gilroy. We discovered that maintaining these sites with the level of monitoring and services that are required come at a very steep price tag of over $40,000 per person per year. It's not just about finding a space and saying, go here. You have to provide the services for the people who are going to go there, and that can be indefinite. It's the same with emergency shelters. It's not about just finding a vacant building. We have to know who's going to be staffing it, what service provider is going to be there. Gilroy, like every other city in Santa Clara County except for San Jose, does not have a Department of Social Services. We work with other jurisdictions, namely the county, for matters of public health and social services. In Gilroy, Santa Clara County Housing Authority manages the Housing Choice Voucher Program, known as Section 8, and provides rental assistance for 2,386 Gilroy residents. By allocating the federal Community Development Block Grant, the City of Gilroy provides $140,000 of annual funding to Rebuilding Together Silicon Valley to make critical home repairs for safety and accessibility modifications that helps to keep residents, often elderly, from being displaced. In further efforts to protect against displacement and prevent homelessness, the City of Gilroy is dispersing over the next 2 years $474,000 in permanent local housing allocation funding from the state. That money is going specifically $110,000 over 2 years to St. Joseph's Family Center to provide emergency rental assistance, utility assistance, and other supportive programs that help diminish the risk of becoming homeless. $40,000 over 2 years to Project Sentinel, providing fair housing services and investigating complaints to address housing discrimination for Gilroy residents. $40,000 over 2 years to Project Sentinel for landlord-tenant counseling and dispute resolution program to help resolve housing conflict and protect Gilroy residents from displacement. $40,000 over 2 years to CADAS, Community Agency for Resources Advocacy and Services, to provide rental and deposit assistance to prevent homelessness for Gilroy families and individuals. $80,000 over 2 years to South County Compassion Center for services to unhoused Gilroy residents to meet their basic needs and to connect them with services to help them attain permanent housing. $70,000 over 2 years to St. Joseph's Family Center for training and employment readiness to prepare individuals that are homeless or at risk of homelessness for stability and greater self-sufficiency. $54,000 over 2 years. The Health Trust delivers meals to low-income and homebound seniors at risk of food insecurity, allowing them to remain in their homes. And $40,000 over 2 years to Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, providing Gilroy residents with disabilities counseling, emergency rental assistance, housing search services to obtain safe, affordable, and accessible long-term housing. After this agenda item, we will be looking to approve our next 2-year budget. And in there, we will find that we have a 2-person crew that we deploy, if it's all approved, that we deploy weekly to provide citywide trash cleanups, something we've had to address because of all the trash that's around. I want to mention the quality of life officers. We have reports that tell us exactly how many contacts they make with unhoused residents. From January 3rd to May 12th alone, 280 contacts between unhoused and transient population and the quality of life officer. These all work together. I'm not trying to point out any one of these things individually. I'm trying to show you the magnitude and scope of everything that this city is trying to do and does. This council, together with all the mayors of Santa Clara County, sent in a letter of support, and this was organized by San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan, to State Senator Susan Eggman, to encourage conservatorships to come back for the people who are mentally ill and cannot take care of themselves, to bring that back so that we have a way to help people who can't make those, who are mentally ill. I'll leave it at that. And lastly, I want to inform everyone that we are also in our budget creating a housing and community services division and elevating a vacant program administrator position, which is a position we created during the pandemic to help with all these kinds of issues that people needed connections with. This is going to be elevated to a housing and community services manager. And that position will provide a higher level of expertise and focus the division, the Housing and Community Services Division, on housing and unhoused issues, such as implementing projects and programs to address housing needs for a diverse community and provide assistance to families and individuals that are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. This agenda item is about protecting our children and critical public infrastructure from the known issues, activities, and behavior that threaten public safety. This is about achieving balance with attempts to safeguard those spaces where threats to public safety are the most grave and can cause the most harm. It's about respecting our obligations and duty under the city charter and to each other. So I will be supporting this ordinance. Thank you. Okay. I'll make a motion.
Make a motion to read the ordinance by title only.
Okay, is there a second? We need to do this one at a time, I think.
That's right.
Okay, so the motion to read the ordinance by title and waive further reading by Councilmember Bracco and seconded by Councilmember Tovar.
Councilmember Almaderis? No. Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley?
Yes. All right, that passed 6
No,
to 1.
well, there's a problem. Under the charter, that motion has to be unanimous. Yeah. And if it's not unanimous, then the clerk will have to read the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy adding Chapter 5 to the City Code relating to banning the use of certain public right-of-ways as sleeping or living accommodations.
I don't understand.
Well, what I'm saying is, under the charter, the ordinance must be read unless the council members present unanimously vote not to read it and to waive the reading. The council may want to reconsider this motion that was just made, if that's true. If Councilmember Armendariz is willing to reconsider it and re-vote on this motion, then that could be done. Otherwise, the clerk will have to read the ordinance.
Because this is just about reading it.
It's just about reading the ordinance. It has nothing to do with passing the ordinance.
I am not. Okay. Okay, then he'll need to read it.
One moment here, Madam Mayor. Ordinance number 23-XX, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy adding Chapter 5 to the Gilroy City Code relating to banning the use of certain public right-of-way as sleeping or living accommodations. Whereas the City Council of the City of Gilroy, known as City, has considered the report from City staff and all public comments, if any, on the need to enact an ordinance in accordance with prohibiting the use of public right-of-way as living or sleeping or living accommodations, and whereas the City finds that it has legitimate and compelling interest in the protecting the public health, welfare, and safety of its residents, as well as preserving the same within the City, its parks and other public property, and whereas the City must appropriately consider various interests and formulate policy to best protect public health, safety, welfare, property, and the environment with limited resources, and where the City Council acknowledges the lack of nightly shelter beds and housing currently available regionally and recognizes the systemic systemic lack of state and federal investment in shelter and public health services for those experiencing homelessness, and whereas the City Council acknowledges that it is currently unavoidable that some people with live or shelter for survival outdoors until they are able to access a affordable or free shelter or housing. In Gilroy, this has typically meant sheltering, sometimes for extended periods of time, on city right-of-way and city property, and at times on other agencies' property, and whereas the public right-of-way and public properties are generally intended for the public use and travel, the City Council is the authority for public right-of-way within the city. As such, the city must consider the safety of motorists and pedestrians traveling on roadways and sidewalks, including to and from neighboring properties, businesses, and residences. The city has had increasing concerns regarding safety due to camping on or in rights-of-way and public property in or near streets, roads, sidewalks, and public access points. And whereas the safety and the protection of the most vulnerable population in Gilroy, children, is paramount concern to the City Council, and whereas the City Council has heard reports from residents of negative interactions between those using public right-of-ways as sleeping and living accommodations and children traveling on paths towards and near locations, schools, and parks, and whereas the city has also been made aware of instances where encampment locations near bridges and the creeks have resulted in damaging activities that, if had left unaddressed, could have resulted in eventual infrastructure failure that would have negatively impacted public safety, and whereas the City Council recognizes the difficult challenge of balancing the needs of residents and public at large to access clean and sanitary public areas, as well as the assurance of safe travel with the needs of individuals who have no alternatives for living accommodations and the storage of their personal property, but also balancing those needs with the concerns of residents that use such property as living and sleep accommodations and strong personal properties interferes with the rights of others members of the public to use of public areas for the intended purposes and can create a public health or safety hazard that adversely affects those who use public use areas. Whereas the city has determined that the ordinance is necessary to the public health, welfare, and safety of residents of the city by enacting regulatory restrictions on using public right-of-ways for sleeping and living accommodations at designated locations, and whereas the city will maintain a map showing the portions of the city impacted by this ordinance, including and attached as attachment A to this resolution, and whereas the area affected by this ordinance accounts for 24.4% of the total area of the city, leaving a large majority of the city's total area, 75.6% in total, unaffected by this ordinance, and whereas the city now desires to proceed with the process of enacting this ordinance for the purpose of protection of the public health, welfare, and safety of its residents. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Gilroy does hereby ordain as follows. Section 1. The foregoing recitals are true and correct and are incorporated herein in this reference. Section 2. Chapter 5 of the Gilroy City Code shall be added to read as follows. Chapter 5. Ban on the use of certain areas of public right-of-way as sleeping or living accommodations. 5.1. Definitions. The definitions contained in section shall govern the construction, meaning, and application of word and phrases used in this chapter and shall not apply to any other chapter of the Gilroy City Code. Subsection A, city employee means any part-time employee of the City of Gilroy. Section B, personal property means any tangible property and includes but is not limited to goods, material, merchandise, tents, tarpaulins, bedding, sleeping bags, hammocks, sheds, structures, mattresses, couches, chairs, other furniture, appliances, and personal items such as household items, luggage, backpacks, clothing, documents, and medication. Section C, public right-of-way, means all property that is owned, managed, or maintained by the city, or where the city possesses a property interest allowing public use of such property, such as right-of-way interest, and shall include, but not limited to, any public street, space, ground, building, or infrastructure. Section D, sidewalk, means that the portion of a street other than the roadway set apart by curbs, barriers, markings, or other delineation or for pedestrians' travel. Section E, street, means a way, a place, or whatever nature, publicly maintained and open to the use of public for purposes or vehicular travel or parking, and includes every highway, avenue, lane, alley, court, place, squares, sidewalk, parking lot, parkways, curves, bikeway, or other public way in the city which has been or may hereafter be dedicated and open to public use, or such public property so designated in any law of the state. Section F. Tent means a collapsible shelter made of fabric or a tarp stretched and thus sustained by supports, which is not open on all sides and which hinders all unobstructed view behind or into the area surrounded by the fabric. Section 5.2, prohibition of using public right-of-way as sleeping or living accommodations. A, parks and playgrounds. No person shall obstruct by sitting, lying, or sleeping, or by storing, using, maintaining, or placing a personal property on a street, sidewalk, or the public right-of-way in the following locations when it reasonably appears in light of all of the circumstances. The participants in conducting these activities are in fact using the area as a living or sleeping or living accommodations regardless of the intent of the participants or the nature of any other activities in which they may also be engaging. 1. Within 500 feet of any park or playground. This prohibition applies all year, overnight, on any weekends and weekdays, even when such facilities may be generally considered closed. B. Other public rights-of-way. No person shall obstruct by sitting, lying, or sleeping, or by storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property on street, sidewalk, or other public right-of-way in the following locations. 1. In a manner that impedes passage as provided by the Americans with Disability Acts of 1990, Pub.L. number 101-336, 104 Statute 328, 1990, as amended from time to time. 2. Within 500 feet of any school or daycare facility, this prohibition applies all year, overnight, on any weekends and weekdays, even when such facilities may generally be considered closed. 3. Within 100 feet of critical infrastructure, including water wells, storm drain basins, railways, bridges, and under and overpasses. 4. Within 10 feet of any operational or utilizable building entrance, exit, driveway, or loading dock. 5. Within 5 feet of any fire hydrant, fire plug, or any other fire department connection. 6. In any manner that obstructs or unreasonably interferes with the use of right-of-way for any activity for which the city has issued a permit. 7. In a manner that obstructs any portion of any street or other public right-of-way open use by motor vehicles, including any portions thereof marked as a bike lane. 8. City creeks and creek embankments within Gilroy city limits. 5.3. Penalties. A violation of this section involving a person who willfully resists, delays, or obstructs a city employee from enforcing this section or willfully refuses to comply after being requested to do so by a city employee shall be punishable as a misdemeanor. All other violations of this section shall be enforceable only as infractions pursuant to Gilroy City Code Section 1.7 or by issuance of an administrative citation pursuant to Gilroy City Code Section 6A.13. Section 3. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is for any reason held to be invalid or unconstitutional, such decision shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. The City Council of the City of Gilroy hereby declares that it would have passed and adopted this ordinance and each section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase hereof, irrespective of the fact that any one or more sections, subsections, sentences, clause, or phrases may be declared invalid or unconstitutional. Section 4. This ordinance shall take effect 30 days after its adoption. The city clerk is hereby directed to publish this ordinance or a summary thereof pursuant to Government Codes Section 36933.
Okay, that's it. That's the end.
Okay, thank you. So now we have do we have a second motion then for the second part of this?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Bracco and seconded by Councilmember Tovar to introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy adding Chapter 5 to the Gilroy City Code relating to banning the use of certain public rights-of-way as sleeping or living accommodations. And this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Nope.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? Yes. And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, and that passes 6-1. Okay, I'm going to ask for a very brief 5-minute break so people can just do what they have to do in 5 minutes, and then we'll come back, please, before 8:30, so 8:27, 8:28. Okay, it's 8:30. We are back, and we are now on item 9.2, Please, if you're someone in here talking, please exit the room and continue your conversation outside. This is to adopt fiscal years 2024 and 2025 operating and capital budgets, position control list, departmental work plans, boards and commissions work plans, and the GAN appropriation limit for fiscal year 2024. Okay. Tom, Anna, please. Thank you. Okay, staff report. Jimmy Forbes.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are bringing you to the end of a long journey that we started back in January of this year. So we've been going at this budget for 6 months. You and the community have had 6 different meetings, 2 goal setting, work plan prioritization meetings in January and March, 2 budget meetings with council. We had the CIP program and a budget introduction, and then an update on the general fund and budget development to council, and then we just recently had a community budget meeting. So I say this often, that this is the most important document that council approves, because without this document we don't have money to do anything, and legally we need your authority to spend money. So this also establishes the work that will be accomplished with the funding you are providing. So we have spent a considerable amount of time on the work plans with your goals and priorities, and so that's where we allocate the resources. And I believe, as your city administrator, we have given you a budget that gives us the resources to do the work plan that I'm hoping you will approve. It incorporates the city's 5 city council goals, which I won't go through again. We've been through that a few times, but some of the key budget takeaways that we included and we thought about as we finished up this budget is that the city is growing 18% in the last 10 years. It's going to continue to grow, especially with the housing being developed. And so in order to maintain pace with that growth, we have to continue to invest in infrastructure. This budget has many infrastructure items in it and many investments, and also implementing some of the long-term master planning, including the housing element, the water, wastewater, stormwater master plans, and then trying to make sure that we augment our staff responsibly. And as we've discussed with ERAF, that gives us a economic shot in the arm that we weren't expecting, of about $1.8 million annually in ongoing general fund revenue, which allows us to make some service maintenance and enhancements. We have discussed concentrating on utility. We're going to need these water and wastewater systems for the housing developments, and we actually, for which is a rare case, we have the funding already in place. We just don't have the people, and so we have made recommendations to do so. I don't want us to lose sight that a lot of the economic development activities that we've been working on for the last years are still going on. They haven't gone away, and 2 most notably is the Shark's Ice, which I'll give you an update about later. Gourmet Alley in downtown will be commencing construction here very soon, and then the Hecker Pass Gateway finishes the Surplus Lands Act process theoretically on June 12th if we do not receive an offer from a housing developer. So those 3 are still ongoing. They will still be in the queue with the other things that we are proposing in this budget, which includes the Civic Center Master Plan and community center opportunities. We also have in here public safety enhancements. We're putting significant money into the equipment and the facilities that our first responders utilize, and also using some of the ERAF money to add firefighters, dispatchers, and police officers. And then lastly, strategic uses of general fund balance while maintaining adequate reserves. We propose to use about $10 million in reserves, but fortunately we have a very healthy reserve level, and we will still maintain our council adopted policy of maintaining 30% reserves. So real quickly, I'm going to take you through just the last highlights of the budget. There's nothing new here. We haven't proposed any major changes. And the last thing that we will talk about is the work plans from our boards and commissions, which is the only new real item that you have here tonight. I'd like to tell people, too, that we do provide services, but at the end of the day, we are a $200 million corporation with about $500 million in assets. And we have 281 employees for fiscal year 24 and 286 in fiscal year 25. It still does not return us to pre-2017 levels, but we certainly have invested in technology and other items that have helped us bridge that gap in manpower and human power, I should say. So citywide, $200 million. The greatest source of income for us is taxes and charges of services. So the taxpayers pay the majority of things. But one thing I wanted to point out was line 4, grants and intergovernmental in fiscal year 24, $11.6 million, and fiscal year 25, $14.1 million. That number was almost non-existent just a few years ago. So really wanted staff to get a lot of credit for working hard to get grants, and we're really seeing the benefits of that and keeping our fingers crossed that even bigger grants are on our way. But that has really helped us bridge some of the gaps in our funding issues. Citywide, this is a little bit misleading because it says that only 30% goes to personnel expenses, and that's when you look at the city as a whole because we spend a lot of money on infrastructure. But regardless, $60 million of the budget and then 63.7 in the next couple of years will go towards our employees, which they are our greatest asset, and we continue to invest in them and continue to need them to provide services. But you can see here out of the $200 million, 30% of that goes to employees. Now, when we talk about the general fund, and that is the fund that we spend the most time on because it's the only fund in which council has discretion to spend in any way they deem necessary. And we get that through sales tax and property tax and then utility user tax. So you can definitely see sales tax and property tax make up the majority, and those are discretionary revenues. The rest of the revenues that you get in the city for water or wastewater have to be spent on water and wastewater. And then next in the general fund, you can see that 70%, 67% of those costs go to employees, and then materials and services and some internal service fund charges. But again, these are all things that you've seen before, so I'll keep going until you stop me or you have a question. This chart to me is probably tells you the budget in a whole. The whole picture is that you see we have $35 million in reserves. We're going to lower that to about 25, but that black line shows that we are still above the minimum reserve level according to our policies. So this is a good use of one-time money and one that will allow us to make some purchases and some investments in our infrastructure. The other item that you'll be asked to approve tonight is the appropriation limit. That is a state requirement, and this one doesn't have a high level of relevance for council because we don't get anywhere close. Our limit is $232 million, and we're only going to spend $52.4 million. So the budget does not come close. But this is state law from the 70s, same time as Proposition 13, and over time it's kind of become irrelevant for us. Position control list. Fiscal year 24, we mentioned that 281 positions total. 16 positions are added or reclassified. We spoke earlier about a housing manager. That will be a conversion that we're proposing. And then across all departments except for fire in the first year. In the second year, 286 positions. Those are all public safety positions. But if we get the ERAF money solved through the court system earlier, we'll come back to council and state we have the identified ongoing revenue source. It's passed the court test. We would move forward with adding those positions earlier instead of waiting for fiscal year 25. If the ERAF process does not come out well in the court process, we'll of course, come back to council and talk about how we're going to fund those if we are able to at all. But we're really putting a lot onto the ERAF money that we're expecting. And yeah, so public safety, 2 police officers, 2 dispatchers, 2 firefighters, all to help us maintain our service level. Council legislative agenda. We spent some considerable amount of time in some of our workshops going through this. This is just a repeat and a summary, and it was in your packet. And so this is the legislative agenda that you have.
Jimmy?
Yes.
It might be important to remind everyone that this is not in any particular order. It's just the 10 of them. Okay.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't have the numbers there, but that's okay. Okay. Department work plan, which is in your packet as well. And again, we focus on the mandated items, which are 13 of them. And if you notice, community development is not a very large department. It's one of our smaller departments, but has a significant amount of mandated items for their work plan due to state mandates. And so we have told council before that we focus on the mandate and the core, and then try to get to the discretionary, and we maintain that. They are not inclusive of all the work that the departments do. We do have the day-to-day things, taking people's payments and doing their permits. But again, these are the items that staff has identified they would like to have resources towards in order to meet mandates or core and discretionary functions. The last piece here, which is new, is the board and commission budget request. Every budget cycle, we do ask our boards and commissions to provide recommendations. And I'm going to kind of go through this because we did get a lot of ideas and recommendations, and some we will recommend and others we did not. And so for the Planning Commission, they did request $20,000 each fiscal year up to for training, and that would enable all planning commissioners to go to some of the statewide planning trainings that are available to them. They are in a quasi-judicial function, so it is important to keep them apprised of rules, regulations, and laws. So we did include that in the budget, but again, that's up to $20,000, and if people don't utilize it, it's not money they can spend elsewhere. It would have to be on training. We got some really good recommendations from the Parks and Recreation Commission, and they were focused on dog parks. Must be a lot of dog owners on the Parks and Recreation Commission, which I can appreciate. But we didn't include that in the budget, and it's not a no from staff. What it is we did include in the budget $100,000 in annual appropriations for general park improvements. So we'll work with the Parks and Rec Commission for them to provide recommendations. They are an advisory board, so we want to hear from them and to balance that money. So it could end up being $50,000 for a dog park, but we want to show them some of the areas that we think need improvement as well. And so it's that money's in there. It's just not allocated for the dog park, but it could be eventually. And then lastly, the Library Commission requested funds for training from the California Library Association, and that's $2,500 each fiscal year. We found ourselves this year as staff talking to our boards and commissions about grants, and many of them wanted to become grant-making entities, and we did not recommend that staff does not recommend that our boards and commissions do that, and primarily because we didn't feel that boards and commissions really had the ability or the charge to grant city expenditures, to decide how the city spent money by giving it to other entities. And one of the primary reasons is that it requires a lot of financial oversight, reporting, auditing, and so we recommend that the current practice that we have had, and an example is the Arts and Culture Commission sponsored the Sidewalk Chalk Festival for $2,500. They were active in that event, and the city staff was with them. So we would request council maintain the current practice of sponsorship opportunities, looking at areas where the city can be involved in activities that really are the backbone of what the boards and commissions are. So we did not include money for grant making. We do not recommend that as an area that our boards and commissions get into, but we believe that the opportunity for sponsorships and activities is still there, as is the current practice.
What's the current training budget for the
I'm going to say probably around 5,000. I think usually one or two will go to that planning. I forgot what it's called, planning seminar or whatever. So they don't tend to spend a lot of money. The 20,000 is if everybody was to go to that type of.
Yeah. When I was on the commission, it was anybody who hadn't been the previous year or during their term.
Yeah.
So would that still stand, or would this be just everybody, even if they've gone before?
It could be something if council wanted to limit that. I do understand 20,000 does seem like a lot. There could be a provision where if you went the year before, you can't go 2 years in a row. You have to serve a year or so on there. We could make that part of that.
But it's updates, so right, on planning issues and stuff.
Yes.
Since you brought that up right now, I'm going to bring it up for myself too, because I have that same concern, only because I look at that number and compare it to what the city council spends on training. It's not nowhere near that. And so even though they are quasi-judicial and they absolutely should have some training, I don't see why $1,500 per year per commissioner isn't plenty, and that's half of what this amount is. And I certainly don't want to get into where we've got all commissioners, especially with those that don't necessarily even serve their whole 4 years, going there. So when we get around to this, I will be bringing this up as something to maybe change.
And along the same lines, are those
conferences also attended by staff?
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes bring the information back to all the commissioners.
Yeah, a lot of times, like the League of California Cities will have training specifically for elected officials and for staff. We typically send our 2 council representatives for the annual conference, but staff goes as well in some cities.
Thank you.
Okay. And then lastly, we have attached to the staff report the board and commission work plans. These are items that your staff liaisons have worked with, and some of the items that these particular groups want to work on over the next few years. And so that is included as well. So those 2 last pieces are the only piece of new information. And so at this point, we feel that we've concluded the budget process, and we have recommendations for you that have to go step by step, and I'll turn it over to the mayor at this point. First of all, I'll answer any questions you have, but then to go through each step as you want to consider each recommendation. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions. I don't have to go first, though, if anybody else has something on their minds. No? Okay. So let's go ahead, since fresh in our minds, let's take the work plan, the training, the stuff that's new to us that we haven't discussed together yet, which is what came from the commissions. Not the work plan, but yes, that. My personal opinion is that we change that $20,000 to, at most, $1,500. Because remember, this is in addition to the training, the Brown Act training and all the training that comes from within that, of course, everybody gets. But on top of that, if there's a conference or something they want to attend, $1,500 per person per year to begin after one has served at least 1 year, and so they know they are committed, you know what I mean, and not have someone who resigns 6 months into their first year. That would be my suggestion. That's just a suggestion. Does anybody have different thoughts?
Yeah, I would support that except for the 1 year part, because if there's an update to planning code or planning law, it's really important that they should know right when they start. I think that's important.
You don't think Andy would tell them that, or whoever is our?
Or whichever staff.
No? I just want to make sure we aren't investing money in someone who hasn't really figured out that they can do this, just because of what has been the case. It didn't used to be the case when I was on the commission, but that has been very frequently the case with people who just, they think they can do it, and then they find that they can't.
I'm okay with $1,500 per person per year.
Yeah. And I am too, but I have a question, and I appreciate your take on this. And I want to reward those individuals that are, that are committed. Obviously, I mean, you looked like at the, again, I have not been on the planning commission, so I don't know what conferences or training, but, when you look at specifically the planning commission chair, where that individual, should or does go to different, should be going to these different events or conferences where maybe if you're the planning commission chair, maybe it's not $1,500, maybe it's $2,500, something. That way, we encourage that individual to go to these conferences or go to these trainings because they're kind of leading that group. Again, I don't know what conferences or events are out there.
Okay, maybe to keep it simple, let's just do $1,500 a year per person each year. Is that a thumbs up from everybody?
That's fine.
Okay, so let's just do that there. And then could you just, the $2,500 each fiscal year for library commission, that is a sum total.
That's right.
Right? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we've got that changed then. That's got a thumbs up. The other question I had was on the OPEB Section 115 trust. Jimmy knew this was coming. I understand that we were told, I personally didn't quite make the distinction between PERS. I didn't realize we had 2 Section 115 trusts. I thought we had 1, and I thought it was for PERS, but we have 2. We have PERS and we have OPEB. OPEB is everything else. So because we had nothing in OPEB, our finance director suggested that we put some money in there because it will help us with qualifying for bonds or things like that. Was that the answer? So what I would like to know is, so the PERS 115 trust is where we put the interest savings by making our annual PERS payment at the very beginning of the fiscal year on July 1st instead of making it at the end. And that has been coming out to a little over $200,000 a year, which is peanuts. And I had hoped, and this is just me, that we would find more money in this budget to put towards the rising unfunded liability that is just higher and higher and higher, and we're making next to no traction on getting ahead of. What we've got is this $500,000, but it's going into the OPEB, not into the PERS. So my question is, did it need to be the whole $500,000? Could it be $250,000? What was the number? Since I didn't make this distinction, so I didn't pay attention clearly. What was the reason, and how much is necessary to go into the OPEB trust to satisfy the reason for putting any money in there at all instead of into the PERS one?
Well, I can tell you the $500,000 is not a calculation. It's not scientific. It's just a dent into the OPEB. So you could adjust that amount. Like even when we do with PERS pension, the Section 115, there's no magic formula how we come up with a number other than the interest savings and then the year-end savings from expenditures. So council has the ability, and we wouldn't recommend against it or for it, because what we're wanting to do is get that on your radar, that we need to start addressing that, because if you have an unfunded liability that it looks like you've never talked about and you've never put a dollar towards, the bond people feel like you're ignoring it.
Yes, I
and
understand.
we have definitely not done that with pensions. We have a couple of $1 million, $2 million or so in the pension side of it, but we have zero in the OPEB side.
Right, but Jimmy, what is our level of unfunded liability on the PERS side is what? Not our level of contribution. What is our today? It changes all the time, but just what is it today?
It was in the 90 million.
Okay, or even say, just for math purposes, let's say it's 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
How much is it in the OPEB? What's the unfunded in the OPEB?
18 million.
18. So that's 18%, right? 18%. So if we've got 2 million in PERS 115 trust, why wouldn't you have at most 18% of that in the OPEB trust and the rest goes into the PERS? Because the PERS is so much bigger.
Actually, I wish I could say we were this calculated, but the math actually works out that way.
500,000 is 25%.
It's 400,000 if you want to do 20% of 18 million.
18 million is about 20, I'm saying it's about 20%.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That's
well, I'm saying 18%.
That's
You're saying
360,000.
20%.
Yeah. So you're actually kind of close. You're a little over, but you're pretty close.
500,000 is 25% of 2 million. If 2 million is what we've got in, we're talking about, we funded 2 million. We have 2 million in the PERS 115,
Right.
and we're proposing 500,000, which is 25% of that.
Yeah, so the PERS funding is at 20% so far, and so the OPEB would be about 25%. So they're relatively close.
Okay, I don't call that close with those kind of numbers.
What page is this on?
I got to put my personal privilege out here for a second. I mean, this is like a back and forth, and I would love to follow it.
Well, I just didn't know we had an OPEB.
Where is it? Is this actually in our agenda packet? Like, is this a conversation we have another time? I mean, I don't get what you're trying to get at.
This budget is proposing $500,000 to the OPEB trust.
What page is that on?
On which slide do you have that on?
Could I make a suggestion?
Okay.
We don't have to decide this right now. The money's not going to get sent till next year. So if you'd like a little bit more explanation about what we're trying to do and how we're funding this, we'd be happy to come back.
Bring it back so we can
And then
pass tonight's budget.
You can pass that. We'll
and
hold
you're
up
gonna
on
bring
that topic,
back.
and we'll
Okay.
bring it back because
I'm not
if-
comfortable with the ratio that's going into each trust, even though I totally appreciate that we should have something in the OPEB. I didn't know we had an OPEB trust, so that's new to me. Okay. Okay.
You want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the other piece is council has a policy above and beyond the interest savings that there's a general fund saving mechanism. So in the budget messages where all this is outlined under CalPERS and OPEB, we're merely making a recommendation to invest monies, set aside monies to address this $18 million unfunded liability, which we're basically a pay-go system as it is. And to the point that City Administrator Forbes was making is, from we're going to be going out to the markets here for other for bond issues and so forth. So one of the things that rating agencies look at is, well, those are the two biggest challenges that cities have. Do you have a plan in place, or have you taken any action to address those?
Mm-hmm.
So for those reasons, we thought it was appropriate to make a recommendation to go ahead and at least that the council has initiated a conversation to say, yes, we're going to invest some dollars to address this. While we've already taken actions in the past to address the pension. So it does have a benefit. But we're happy to come back to have a more robust conversation. But that was the intent, is to, while we're addressing everything else, we're investing money, we should also be looking at our liabilities as well and make some investments there.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Anybody else? Okay, then we start. It's A, B, C, D, and E.
Madam Mayor,
public comment. Sorry.
Public hearing.
Public hearing. It is 8:55. Do we have any speakers?
I have no speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Closing at 8:55. Okay. All right. So possible action. Looking for a motion to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Gilroy setting the appropriation limit for fiscal year 24. Do that first. Motion made by Councilmember Klein. Seconded by Councilmember Bracco. This alone does not include any of the other stuff we were talking about, so this is a roll call vote that does not include what I was talking about for training and all that. That'll be the next one. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just give me 1 second here so I can get this ready. Councilmember Almaderis?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley?
Yes. All right. That passed unanimously. So now B would be a motion to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Gilroy adopting the operating and capital improvement budget for fiscal year 24 and 25 and appropriating expenditures for the purposes set forth in the budget, with the recommended change that Planning Commission training be $1,500 per person per year for a total of, I think it comes to $10,500. If you do the math.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, and?
And also, the second amendment would be not to approve the $500,000 contribution to the Section 150 trust, that we will bring it back to you for separate action.
Okay, thank you. Which just, it's not the whole 500,000, it's just the, I know, okay, thank you. Okay, so that, well, it's the same total amount, I'm just saying we should be looking at the, to which trust.
Madam Mayor, may I ask who motioned and
So
second?
it was moved by Councilmember Bracco and seconded by?
Me.
Councilmember Armendariz.
Thank you. Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? Yes. And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, okay, that's unanimous. Next is needing a motion to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Gilroy establishing the position control list for fiscal years 24 and 25. Councilmember Klein made the motion, seconded by Councilmember Tovar.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes?
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, that's also unanimous. Looking for a motion to approve the city goals, priorities, legislative agenda, department work plans for fiscal 24 and 25. That was made by Councilmember Hilton, seconded by Councilmember Tovar.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? Yes. And Mayor Blankley?
Yes. And lastly, approving the boards and commissions work plans for fiscal year 24 and 25. Moved by Councilmember Hilton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Armendariz.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? Yes. And Mayor Blankley?
Yes. Passes unanimously. We are on to 9.3, Gilroy Square Project. Gilroy Crossings Phase 2, Planned Unit Development, Zoning Amendment, Tentative Map, and Arc and Site Review for property located at 6970 Camino Arroyo, file number Z22-02, TM2102, and AS2113. And first, I go to a disclosure of ex parte communications. Looking down the line, has anybody spoken to anybody? So Mark Sanchez called me only? Okay, there we go. Okay. Oh, he called me about this project, so no new information to share, but I wanted to disclose that we had the conversation. Okay? So it looks like just me, Councilmember Klein, Councilmember Tovar, and I'm throwing you in there, Dion. Okay. All right, staff report is going to start with Craig, not Sharon. Okay? Go ahead, Craig.
So this is a proposal to amend an existing planning and development.
Excuse me, Craig, can you turn on the mic?
Oh, there we go. Is it on? All right, thanks. Okay, Mayor, council members, Craig Tamernini, City of Gilroy Planning Department. I've been working with the applicant on this project for the last year and a half or so, and we're pleased to bring this forward to you tonight. The proposal is to develop 10 acres of property that was part of the existing Gilroy Crossings Plan Unit development. This 10 acres is what was designated as Phase 2 of the development, the first phase obviously being the shopping center on the east side of Camino Arroyo between 101 and this site. We've had a proposal from a developer to develop the site with primarily retail and commercial uses, and then to reserve the back part of the property for future industrial. The development would include a drive-through restaurant, a gas station, and 2 large hotels with approximately 200 keys, 200 rooms in the hotel portion. The applicants propose a robust landscaping plan and some detailed designs that are intended to complement, enhance, and further promote the high design quality that we expect in this area. The project was presented to the Planning Commission, who recommended approval to the City Council. We've prepared a mitigated negative declaration for this project. Previously, there was an environmental document prepared for the original development quite a while ago. I think it's been at least 20 years since that was adopted. The level of service standard was in effect at the time for traffic control, so there were some mitigation measures that talked about the fact that there would need to be some traffic upgrades in this area. Of course, since then, we've gone to a different metric, vehicle miles traveled, so level of service is now just a merits-based consideration for the city. So this project did have an analysis on both vehicle miles traveled and level of service for your information to identify what does this project do in terms of our existing service capacities. The project environmental document also looked at some environmental considerations, considering some wildlife on site. There are some potential for protected bird species to be on site, so that would be looked at prior to construction. The project would generate greenhouse gas emissions. We have to look at that now. And the primary consideration for that comes from the fast food restaurant, which uses gas appliances. And so the obligation of the project would be either come up with a plan to mitigate on site or buy carbon offset credits, which you probably recall hearing about in the past on projects. You can purchase and offset your carbon emissions through buying credits and take care of the local emissions through that methodology. The project's consistent with in substantial conformance with all of our general plan policies, promoting commercial, bringing jobs to the community, and providing economic business growth. The project has to comply with the plan unit development zoning standards. We've gone through all of the criteria for that in our staff report and identified that the findings continue to be met for this project. In addition, the project will include an art installation, which is something that we've consistently requested and would be brought forward with this project to provide an additional public amenity for the site. The project also requests a tentative map, not required but requested, in order to finance these lots and develop them independently. And again, the Planning Commission has recommended 6-0 with 1 member absent to unanimously support this project. So staff's recommending you take essentially 5 actions tonight. The first would be adopt a resolution adopting the mitigated negative declaration as the adequate environmental document for this project. The next would be to pass a motion to read the ordinance by title only and waive further reading. The third would be to introduce the ordinance approving the PUD amendment for this site. The fourth would be to adopt the resolution creating a tentative map for this property, create 6 new lots to develop as shown on the development plans. And lastly, adopt the architectural and site review with conditions for the proposed development. So that concludes my presentation. Our environmental consultant is here. Should you have any questions about the environmental document, the applicant's team is here as well. Should you have any questions for them?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council members, we'll go. Okay, Councilmember Armendariz.
How far out is traffic impacted in terms of northbound towards the nearby neighborhood?
Let's see if I've got a decent exhibit here. So northbound, down Camino Arroyo? Oh, on Chestnut.
That's other side of the highway.
Other side of the freeway. It would not, it would have no significant impact on this west side of the freeway. It's primarily the 152 Camino Arroyo intersection, which is a Caltrans intersection that would be affected. This project adds roughly operationally about 15 to 20% additional traffic to that intersection, and that intersection is part of a long-term fix that, as the council is aware of, is currently going through I think it's called a PID, doing development plans to improve that, and it would be mitigated in the long term, and this project would pay traffic impact fees towards that intersection improvement. But they don't cause, they add to the condition, but they don't cause increased level of or decrease in level of service at that intersection at this time.
Because the nearest resident to there is the mobile home park?
The nearest to this?
Nearest resident area.
Well, it would be, I guess, on Chestnut Chestnut 8th and 9th would be the nearest residential area. But traffic wasn't shown to be directed down in that direction. It's mostly on and off freeway, primarily, and then distributed along the city surface streets. And ideally, if we create this additional collector from Holloway to Luchesa, we'd be able to have kind of a relief valve for some of the traffic in that area to go in a different direction.
Okay. See no others. I just want to reiterate, this is for two 200 plus room hotels, right?
Two hotels with 200 rooms total, so I think it's 88 rooms and 112, so 200 keys total.
Oh, I see, 200 rooms between the two hotels.
Correct.
Right, and one is a Residence Inn, and the other is, none of those things are guaranteed, I guess, but Residence Inn and the Holiday Inn Express, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then a Burger King for the restaurant?
Yeah.
That was my question. Again, is that a definite?
It currently is now. The developer has they've negotiated deals, and so these are the intended occupants. Now it could be that somebody else may come in, or it could be that the council could make. This is a planned unit development. You do have control over land uses, so you could ask for other things. We did talk to them about a sit-down restaurant type of use, and unfortunately, nothing was. They weren't able to secure any deal along those lines, but they did have a local franchisee who was interested in doing the restaurant.
Well, and I guess that's why I was bringing this question up. I don't know. If the Burger King is what everybody wants to have there, I understand. That,
well, that's what the developer.
Right. No,
yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
It's what they can get, but we do have some sort of say in that. But
well,
I don't eat at Burger King, so.
No discrimination against Burger King. That was my first high school job, the one on Leasley. I was that drive-through person that took your order. Yeah. So.
Something healthier would be nice, but all right.
Okay, so seeing no other questions from council, then I'd like to open the public hearing at 9:08.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have one speaker card, and it's from Patrick McGaughy.
Okay. Now, are you the applicant? Or no?
No, I'm not the applicant. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Patrick McGoy. I'm with Paragon Commercial Group. We have the 4.4 acres immediately adjacent just to the east of this property under contract, and we anticipate submitting an application within about the next 90 days. We're very much in favor of this project. One thing I'd like to say is that cross-access, I know, has been a condition of approval on this, and where that goes will be important. Ideally, we'd like to see it between the restaurant and the gas station for the viability of our project. But all in all, I just wanted to say that we're very much in favor of this project, and we look forward to, for our part, being part of the Gilroy community.
Okay.
Thank you. No, not a Burger King. They're taken.
All right, thank you. Okay, no other public comments?
Madam Mayor, we do have one other public comment. It's from, we'll have two.
Okay.
This next one is Albert Lustri.
Okay.
Good evening again, my name is Albert Lustri with the Northern California Carpenters Union Local 45. Mayor, like you said, Burger King was your first job. That was my first job in Leasley. I was a drive-through guy too. And that's what came in. I went to the outlets. I probably worked at Gilroy outlets for about maybe 20 years. So I've been around in Gilroy. After that, I started the union, which gave me my career. And the reason why I'm speaking about this project today is because it's a great project. But it'd be better if we have actually a responsible general contractor that decides to pay a livable wage, local hire, apprenticeship, and healthcare. That's what we need in the city of Gilroy. And I know it's at the beginning, but we need that for our local residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, and Susan Mister.
Go for it. All I can say is this is fabulous with the hotels coming in. We're going to need it with the Sharks skating rink, which we're going to hear about in just a little bit from Jimmy. I mean, if that's talking, 18 months to 24 months, build fast. That's all I can say. I hate that area for traffic. On Friday night, it's bad now. But, what are you going to do? The nice thing about economic development, they come in for the weekend and leave, spend their money and leave. I'm all for this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments?
No other matter, Mayor.
Okay, then closing the hearing at 9:11. And looking for
I have
possible.
quick discussion with you guys. Craig, if you could come back up for a second. So on packet page 395, there's one of the conditions, condition number 66. And all I'm trying to ask is just like the language of that with number 18 to be similar. And I'll tell you where they're different. So on number 66 under bicycle parking, it says short-term bike parking provide permanently anchored bicycle racks within 200 feet of the visitor's entrance. The reason why I'm bringing the permanent thing up is that, right, we don't want to sink bike racks into concrete in case we have to move them or anything. You're usually surface mounted now. They're not permanently in concrete, and that's flexibility for the developer in case they feel like they need to move, the racks, or they damage one and they want to put one back in. So that language changed, and the reason why I'm saying that too is that on number 18, it actually goes even further. It says that the bike rack should actually be located near the building entrance within constant visual contact, and then it mentions the inverted U-rack, which is our city standard. So they're different, and I just want to know if that's maybe an oversight or it's something that I can actually formally introduce to try to change as a condition.
It can certainly be introduced to if you want to clarify that staff's completely open to that.
I figured you guys were. I mean, there's 178 conditions. So
we have building, planning, and engineering all writing conditions regarding that, so we do need to try to sync those up. So if we're off base on something, certainly we can.
I could tell. And on one of them, it says that the rack shall be approved by the community development director, and then when it goes to Public Works and their review team, it says, actually, you need to come talk to the traffic engineer.
Fortunately, we get along really well.
Okay, that's all I have. I'd be happy to make a motion and introduce that language change, and if anybody has any questions on why, please let me know so I can clarify.
Yeah, go for it. I would only ask, does the applicant need to give an opinion on that? Do they care? Are we fine with that? Because it's a condition, and probably fine?
You're right. Yeah, the applicant's nodding that he's not concerned with it, and generally with something at we do work out at building permit
Very good.
stage.
Very good. Okay.
I'll second that motion when he's...
Trying to get my thing to refresh here. There we go.
Well, we need to start out with the first motion on the mitigated neck deck.
Okay. Oh my God.
To the change that Councilmember Hilton wants.
Okay, so then let's first go to motion number 1, which is to adopt a resolution mitigated negative declaration prepared for the Gilroy Square project based on the independent analysis of the City Council and in accordance with CEQA. So do we have a motion for that? Okay, made by Councilmember Tovar.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Armendariz, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley?
Yes. Okay, and then the second one is the motion to read an ordinance by title only and waive further reading, which also doesn't affect, right, what we're talking about?
So moved.
Okay. Okay, moved by Councilmember Tovar.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Marks. Roll call.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, okay, you can read the title.
Yes, Madam Mayor. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy amending Gilroy Crossings Phase 2 Commercial/Industrial Planned Unit Development C3-HC-M2 PUD Zone District for the Gilroy Square project consisting of 10.18 acres of property located at 6970 Camino Arroyo, APN 840-70-049, file number Z22-02.
Wow, that was just the title. Okay. Okay, so that passed, obviously unanimously. So now item 3, does this come under 3, 4, or 5? Councilmember Hilton,
I believe mine would be under the Arkansas, is that correct?
Okay, so that'd be under 5. Okay, so let's continue then. Item 3, we need a motion to introduce an ordinance of the City Council approving planned unit. Okay, who made the motion? Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember Tovar. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, passed unanimously. Okay, now a motion to adopt a resolution approving tentative map. 2102. Moved by Councilmember Tovar, seconded by Councilmember Klein.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, also unanimous. Okay, 5, motion to adopt a resolution for Arc and Site Review, AS 2113, for plan unit development, subject to...
Yeah, so moved, subject to condition number 66, and that would, the language would read, provide surface-mounted bicycle racks located near the building entrance, i.e. within constant visual range, for 5% of new visitor parking spaces added, with a minimum of 1 2-bike capacity inverted U-rack.
Would the rest of that condition stay? So the long term, the next 2, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that motion was made by Councilmember Hilton and seconded by Councilmember Klein, was it? Okay.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, all right. Done with that. I should have thanked, in the last one, when we passed the budget, I should have said thank you to staff, because I know it's been months and months and months of them working on that budget, and we just kind of got right through it after everything. So I certainly want to thank you all for all of the work in that document. Okay, 10.1 now. Approval of the capital improvement program for fiscal year 24 through 28. Daryl.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and community. Tonight I'm here to present the final public presentation of the fiscal year 24-28 5-year CIP program. A little background: as previously presented, the capital improvement program represents a major investment in the community, reflects overall priorities of the city, and positively impacts the health and vibrancy of the community and our economy. The draft version of the 24-28 CIP was provided to Council on May 3rd, 2023. With some feedback, revisions were made to certain projects affecting the project charters and financial information. Henceforth, a memo highlighting the revisions was provided to Council on May 19th. These revisions included several projects following 10th Street Uvas Creek Bridge, the Gilroy Ice Center, which will be discussed later this evening, Chestnut and Los Animas fire stations with some improvements. The CIP summary pages, including budget by project category and budget by funding source and program details, and also updated budgets for 21 projects based on the $1.3 million CIP project management services that was approved by this Council on May 15th. Okay. Additional background: staff also shared bicycle, pedestrian, and park-related projects with the draft CIP document with the Parks and Recreation Commission on March 21st. Staff introduced the CIP development process and draft project charter book to the Planning Commission just this last week on June 1st for general plan compliance review. I'm happy to present that the PC found the CIP in compliance and voted in favor of the plan. Tonight's agenda item provides Council the opportunity to adopt the draft CIP plan for fiscal year 24-28. It's important to note that the adoption of the CIP plan does not approve any specific projects for construction. The CIP projects and respective budgets for the 24-28 are included in tonight's separate 24-25 operating and capital budget agenda items that were previously presented. And the Council will see these projects again and have the opportunity to review and approve individual projects prior to any contract awards. The 5-year CIP program totals over $210 million. Utilities and street programs represent 74% of the total 5-year CIP. Council will consider the budget adoption, which they have tonight for the 24-25 this evening. The 24-25, the draft CIP totals $124.1 million for the next 2 years from 22 funding sources. The CIP is a work plan item of the Public Works Department and is prepared in collaboration with each and every one of our departments. The CIP work plan has no direct fiscal impacts. The impact of staff time to update and prepare the document is accommodated within respective departments' existing resources and work plans. As for public outreach, the City Council and Community Workshop was held on May 3rd and included the following topics: the purpose of the 5-year CIP plan, the CIP policy document, overview of projects, and it was open to questions and answers. The process for review and adoption of the CIP was initiated with the Parks and Rec Commission on March 21st. Next, the City Council CIP workshop on May 3rd, followed by the City Council budget workshop with CIP recap on May 22nd, and a presentation to our Planning Commission on June 1st. And finally, tonight, our CID adoption for City Council this evening. Tonight, staff requests your adoption of the capital improvement program for fiscal year 24 through 28, and we're here with any questions that council may have.
Okay. Council members, any questions? Public comment, anything?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing public comment. This is a digital vote if anybody wants to make a motion. Okay, moved by Councilmember Bracco and seconded by Councilmember Armendariz to approve the capital improvement budget for 24 through 28.
It passes unanimously, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you,
okay,
Council.
thank you. All right, thank you, Daryl. Okay, that brings us to 11.1, new business. This is adopting a resolution declaring 4 city-owned properties as surplus pursuant to Government Code Section 54221, and find that the council's actions in doing so is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15061B3. Bryce is back.
I'm back. Mayor, Council, so the city owns 4 properties that are not currently in use for city government purposes. This property is not currently able to be used to meet any known service demands that we have, and it's cost prohibitive to improve compared to the benefits of that development if we do for a city government purpose. We're requesting Council declare surplus and direct the properties to the Surplus Lands Act process. Additional outreach and planning considerations will be made, especially with the newly adopted housing element for their outreach to local housing developers. It's important to note that we were asking Council to declare surplus, but any disposition decisions, so like let's say if we wanted to lease or sell the property, would be at Council's discretion, again respecting the Surplus Lands Act. So the Surplus Lands Act, upon declaring surplus, we would issue out a notice of availability. It would be issued to Housing Community Development and their maintained list of developers, as well as other agencies with jurisdiction over the property. It's a 60-day response period that the noticed organizations can respond within. If requests to negotiate received, then it's up to an additional 90 days of negotiation and good faith effort. If no requests to negotiate are received, or if no deal is reached, then at the end of either of those processes, we then submit to Housing and Community Development for a clearance letter showing compliance. They have 30 days to review that, our information and our evidence in order to make that determination. If the process for any reason is violated, then up to 30% of proceeds of any sale or lease transaction would be put into an affordable housing fund. So the 4 properties are on the screen here. Starting at the upper left, it's the Creamery Building on Railroad Street. Proceeding to the right, it's the parking lot here at 7th and Rosanna. Below that is a single-family house that is immediately adjacent to the south on Rosanna. And then the other one is the building at IOOF and Monterey. So as mentioned, it's exempt from review under SEQA because declaring the property surplus and directing staff to issue a written notice of availability will not have a foreseeable significant effect on the physical environment. The properties are not committed to any particular use, and predicting the impacts of any future use would be speculative at this point. And none of the circumstances in SEQA Section 15300.2 applies, and the full SEQA exemption statement is available in the staff report. Alternatives, council may, of course, reject or modify the declaration, selecting some or all properties not to be declared surplus. Fiscal impact, it's a minimal cost for mailing notices, and that will be absorbed from the existing appropriations. And any fiscal impact from the disposition of any property would be reported to council at that time of that decision. And so staff's recommendation is for council to adopt the resolution declaring the 4 properties as surplus. And that completes the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Council? All right, Councilmember Armendariz.
Bryce, would declaring these as surplus prohibit us from using them for anything like safe parking or something like that for a city purpose?
No, so during the Surplus Lands Act, the city can withdraw from that process. Additionally, there's no mandate of sale or lease at the end. If there is no transaction at the end that qualifies under Surplus Lands Act, then we have to put a deed restriction on the property that should any housing of greater than 10 units be built there, then 15% must be reserved for low-income
Deed restricted.
housing. A deed restriction.
Got it. Thank you.
These are also pretty small properties. I mean, all of them are small.
Correct.
So, okay, just FYI.
I'm familiar with them.
Oh, yeah, they're pretty small. Okay, any other questions? Okay, then public comment. It actually doesn't say that, but shouldn't we have public comment on this?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Do we have any?
We have no speaker cards.
Okay, closing public comment. So need a motion. Okay, moved by Councilmember Tovar.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Armendariz, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Brockman?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar? Yes. And Mayor Blankley?
Yes. All right, that passes unanimously. Item 12, City Administrator's Reports. Jimmy, Community Development Department and Public Works Engineering Division temporary closure and Shark Size update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a real quick update concerning the online permitting system implementation. This is the very last piece of the ERP and land management system. And so this system will be installed June 12th through 16th. And so all permitting functions for the city will stop during that period of time. We have done extensive outreach and letting people know that if they come to the counter or to City Hall to try to get a permit, they will not be able to get one. I know there will be some upset individuals who show up and aren't able to do so, but the end result is we will have a modern system that can be done completely online. They'll no longer have to come in place in the building and apply for building, planning, or fire permits, and they can track the progress of their application online, and then they can schedule and track inspections online as well. So it's going to be an inconvenience for a week. I give it the equivalent of tearing up your street and then repaving it. People don't like that when their streets are torn up, but we all like smooth pavement. And so we will be closed for a week, and so we apologize in advance, but it's just something we have to do. So, June 12th through June 16th. Building, planning, engineering, encroachment, and fire permits.
Does it affect licensing at all? No.
No.
Okay.
Okay. The second update is the Sharks Ice update. I did want to give council some information about where we're at. I know it's been awfully quiet, but that doesn't mean that nothing's going on. So at this point, the city has hired a project manager who is in the process of negotiating a contract with an architect. These are items that are not dependent on the Sharks. These are items that are dependent on the city. So we as the city are trying to do all the things we can before we get the final design and we go out for bidding construction of the ice arena. So the project manager who works for the city will develop the architectural kind of parameters so we can get an idea of how much this will cost, how much the bond issuance will be, and then have a more definitive date on when we come back to council to get the bond approved. Within the next couple of council meetings, you will have to approve the architectural design. The city retains all of those renderings, all of that information. So again, we drive that process. The second part that, as you may be well aware, we are absolutely petrified and terrified of PG&E, and that we could have a brand new, beautiful facility that doesn't have electricity. So we are looking at methods and infrastructure improvements that we can do now that will give us a better opportunity to alleviate that fear, because that fear is real, and there's just not much we can do about it. So we have a lot coming from the Sharks. We will also be finalizing the actual agreement for operation and of the facility, but we are on our way. We are now spending money on this project, and so that's when you know you're serious, is when you actually start spending your own money. And so we do anticipate that at the end of this year we have an opportunity to begin construction, which is an 18 to 24 month process. And so once we get the ground broken, that'll be the real exciting part. But trust me, we have a lot of work going into this right now, and the design build process that was approved by the voters in November will be our first test project that will really accelerate this, because we don't have to have it completely designed and finished before we can bid it out, and we can actually start bidding it or building it while we're finished designing certain parts of it. So it's not hung up on each other, and you'll really be able to see a project go pretty quick with this type of this bidding process. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that concludes my report.
I've got one. So construction can't actually begin until bond money's received, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so what about is the time lag from the time the council approves the bond to actually getting the money?
It doesn't take very long at all, depending on what kind of bond you're issuing, but I've seen them go within 30 to 60 days.
Well, don't we know what kind of bond we're issuing? We don't know that?
Well, we typically do, but when we go into the market, it's always different than what you thought it was before, so I wouldn't want to ascertain that this is exactly what we're doing, but we have a pretty good idea.
Okay, so 30 to 60 days, you said?
Sometimes, yes.
Right, okay.
Depending on the market and depending on...
I know, I understand. I was just trying to get an idea for how long we're going to be waiting on that from the time we approve because nothing can begin until that money's issued.
Nothing building-wise can, but there's plenty we can do because the city has the money for the infrastructure.
Oh.
We already committed as part of the draft agreement that we would do the sewer, water, electrical hookup, and that comes all of our impact funds.
Okay.
So we have that money. There'll be construction work, but you are correct. The actual building of the facility itself will not occur until the bonds are issued.
Okay, but members of the public who are driving by or using the sports park are going to see stuff happening long before the end of this year.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want. Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, that brings us to city attorney's reports. If you got anything?
No, we don't want to report at this hour, I don't think.
Okay, yeah.
We'll pass
I wasn't that far.
Pass till next meeting.
I estimated 10 o'clock. I wasn't
You did,
that
you were
far
close.
off. Yeah, 9:33. Okay, everyone, we are adjourned. Thank you. At 9:30.